we are celebrating Pride. Pride for the LGBTI+ community and Pride for our players and fans.
But there's a lot we can do to make sure everyone feels safe being a part of football, at games,
and in club rooms and around the country.
The first step is taking a stand on how we talk to each other.
Homophobic and transphobic comments are not on.
We all know it's wrong, but we still hear it way too often, at games and online.
It's up to all of us to change the way we talk and call out others.
Just by changing the way we talk, we can include so many more fans and players to share our love for the game.
We know it's wrong, so why are we still doing it?
To our fans and the community clubs across the country, from the change rooms to the stands.
Let's make football for everyone and cut out the homophobic and transphobic language.
It's time to cut out discrimination, starting with us.
Starting with us.
starting with us.
Starting with us.
Enjoy this weekend's Pride celebration, and to those at the games, let's change our sporting culture and ensure we are creating an A-League for all.
An A-Leagues for all.
An A-Leagues for all.
An A-League for all.
Hello and welcome to a very special Sunday edition of Dub Zone. It is Pride Round in the A-League and it's all culminating in the Pride Cup tonight, where we will see Melbourne Victory taking on Adelaide. All very exciting. I'm Brianna Goodchild. It's a pleasure to be back in studio, and I'm joined by Katadat, our social media expert, the voice of the Liberty A-Leagues, Teo Pellizzeri, and of course, former Matilda and former Western Sydney coach Kath Canuli. And Kath, I believe a congratulations is in order.
Thank you. The birth of my baby boy, Mateo. So if I've got a bit of bags underneath my eyes, it's because it's the lack of sleep at the moment.
I mean, I think that's a fair enough reason, but you look fantastic. Now, Pride Round, what does that mean for you?
Oh, look, it's amazing that we've been able to celebrate this as a sport. You know, it just goes to show how far this whole situation has come, and it's really important that, you know, we get to embrace this and how football has actually come together. And I'm just loving the way all the clubs have actually got behind it. And, you know, there's been no hoo-ha in the media. It's just been such smooth sailing, and it's just fantastic that we can actually celebrate today.
Yeah, definitely. And it was great to just see how many people were involved, even in just that opening clip as well. So great to see everyone really getting behind it. Now, Teo, let's take it to the football. We're into round 15. Already plenty of play that's happened. Can you talk us through it?
Yeah, absolutely. So 2 games yesterday. We had Canberra 3-0 against Western Sydney Wanderers, Perth in the evening 2-0 against the Brisbane Roar. Earlier today in Auckland, Wellington Phoenix losing 1-0 to Sydney FC. And in our live game, one of 2 games on Dub Zone today, Western United have blitzed Newcastle. That game is currently at halftime, so you're not missing any live action, but it's 4-0. And of course, as part of Dub Zone, you'll have Melbourne Victory and Adelaide United.
Very, very exciting stuff. And look, can you take us through the ladder as well? Because it's getting to crunch time.
It certainly is. So throw 3 extra points onto Western United up the top there. Sydney FC closing the gap. It is crunch time today for Adelaide. They can still get to 31 points if they were to win their remaining games, but you see Victory there on 22. They've got their noses just in front of Canberra and Perth. Those 2 are making a charge. It makes today vital for Victory, but even more important for Adelaide.
So you mentioned it, that Newey game is underway and it's, well, a lot has happened. Can you talk us through the highlights?
Yeah, well, Catherine Canuli, as we go to the highlights of this game, it's been chaotic. It's very similar to the last time you were on Dub Zone when Western United were up 5-0 at halftime. Now, we'll get to this when we go through the social chat, but Newcastle had some rescue dogs that they walked out onto the pitch with. We will revisit that. Let's go to the goals. And it starts with Carly Johnson scoring not once but twice her first 2 goals in the Liberty A-League, Catherine Canuli. The first one was a bit of sus goalkeeping. The second one was a brilliant individual effort.
Look, you can see how far she's come. You know, she was just waiting for her time, and to see a young Matilda, you know, get her opportunity now to be able to play and start in games, and to see her on a brace at the moment, that second goal was fantastic as well.
Now, in between those 2 goals, there was a red card. Taranto bowled over by Emily Agania, the American. She was already on a yellow, so even if you don't think it was a straight red, she was getting sent off regardless. But Catherine, here is the resulting goal. Cassidy Davis sent for lunch, and Carly Johnson with a beautiful finish on the tight angle.
It was beautiful feat by Johnson. You know, she was just standing her up, getting the time, and she's just taken Cass Davies to lunch there and put it in the back of the net.
Now, this has gone down as an own goal for Georgie Worth, so she's having a tough time in goal. Good work by Taranto there on the goal line to make it awkward, and TJ Vlanich's corner is battered in by the keeper. And TJ said, well, if I don't get credit for that one, I want one for myself. Carly Johnson was shooting for a hat-trick here. Worth making amends, perhaps, with a triple save. And so Johnson maybe thinks she should have had a first-half hat-trick, really. But TJ Vlanich, kabosh! That one into the back of the net, and a sensational finish. If she doesn't get the first one, at least she definitely gets this one.
What a strike. We know she's got a beautiful left foot, and to take a goal like that, and especially as a fullback, to be able to hit that ball like that. But, Vlanich at the moment, she's just been a really great addition to the Western United team.
So bear with me while I dive into the record books, because unfortunately for Newcastle, it's entering record defeat territory for them.
Oh my goodness, not the box office Jets. It's a tough day to be a Newey fan, but I know those Newey fans, they die hard. So come on, get behind your team. Still some minutes to come. We'll be covering all of that, but we do need to cross to social. So it is World Pride, it's Pride Round, and I've seen some beautiful Mardi Gras photos from some of our players. Kat, what else is making socials this week?
Yeah, a specific highlight to Chloe Lagazzo, who wore an amazing outfit at Mardi Gras. Check out her Instagram. Best she's ever looked. Amazing.
Honestly, sparkly gem was the vibe.
Speaking of best you've ever looked, Brianna, show everyone your earrings.
Okay. Just a little bit
Look at these earrings, guys.
Right?
You set the bar really high with the fashion today. I need to step
We're
up.
all killing it in the scarves, though, I will admit.
This is
Look
true.
at
This
these.
is true.
Beautiful.
I like the colour. Well, there's obviously a lot in socials this week with Pride Round and World Pride. This is such a fantastic opportunity for Liberty A-Leagues and A-Leagues in general to really step up and show their support for this initiative. There are so many players, the likes of Emma Checker, who provided this beautiful insight into her own experience as a player who came out to her family and talked through that experience. And it was a very vulnerable piece, but I think it's really beautiful, and it's something that a lot of players and viewers of football can really relate with. So I highly encourage you to check out that piece. It's real insight into the importance of Pride Round and what it really means to players at the moment.
A special little tease as well. We will actually have Emma joining us later on Dub Zone, so make sure you stick around. But also, Kat, I believe we've had a very important date drop.
We sure have. April 30. What are you doing that day, Teo?
Can't answer that just yet, actually.
Well, I think if you can, you'll be attending the grand final, which is April 30. It's been announced. It will be at Combank Stadium, which I know, Kath Canuli, you'll be happy about that as well, because Combank has a special place in your heart, being Western Sydney's home ground. I'm very excited that they've announced this grand final date.
Look, I remember when they announced the rebuild of that stadium. I used to go there as a young kid, But to see the grand final in Sydney, I know a lot of people might not be happy, but to see it out of Combank, there's a lot of following for football in the Western Sydney region, and it's going to be really nice to see the game be held there. And I hope that everybody can really get behind it and get behind the Liberty A-League.
Absolutely. And Parramatta, the Combank Stadium is a fantastic way to view football. It's one of my favourite stadiums. You really feel close to the action. So I think that makes the grand final even more special. But speaking of exciting things that have happened this week, the Matildas also won the Cup of Nations. They beat Spain, Jamaica and Czechia in three very different approaches to three very different nations. They've absolutely pulled it off, and this is exactly what we want to see heading into the Women's World Cup. It's the kind of momentum, the kind of results that we want to see. But I guess the key here is to really talk about the Matildas and who the standouts are in this tournament, and who we want to see do more for the Matildas as we head towards that Women's World Cup. So Kath, who was a standout performer for you in this tournament?
I think Katrina Gorry was one of the standouts in this tournament. Look, I think she's really taken her football to another level. We know, prior to her having little baby Harper, she wasn't in, the best of ways in her football. But to see her come back and really go on the pitch, and, you can see when she just plays with such freedom. I think the most exciting thing for me as well was when actually Chidiac and Kyra Cooney-Cross were on the field at the same time. That was really exciting to see those three players, and I think they're really exciting footballers. They're creative, they're not robotic, and it's just, it was really nice to see those three link up on the pitch as well.
Absolutely. Chids certainly comes in clutch, doesn't she, Teo? What were your thoughts on Cup of Nations?
Look, I think it's good that the national team got rewarded for upsetting the established order. So many people out there were so close-minded and saying, oh, it's too late to introduce new players. Here's Claire Hunt looking like a solution at centre-back already. You know, Alex Chidiac, some had thought the papers had been stamped. There's been a huge campaign. She's been playing incredible football for well over a year now. And we've finally got the door ajar for Alex Chidiac to show us what she can do. Now it's a debate of, is she in the starting 11 or, forgive me repeating this term, the finishing 11? Give us a spell. I mean, you put your best players in the starting 11, and it's not a question of if Alex Chidiac's in our best 11. She's in our best 3 or 4 players. So I would love to see her in the starting 11. But, I mean, this feeling of being refreshed at seeing Claire Hunt, and my goodness, our eyes have been open to new options. Hey, there are more players we can do that with. And I know I sit here and I say, hey, let's call up Kirsty Fenton. Let's give her a go. This was the tournament to do it, to be honest, because that refreshing feeling of seeing a new face in Claire Hunt at centre-back, we could have had that with Kirsty Fenton, you know, deputising for Steph Catley at left-back or maybe playing at right-back too. So, you know, we're getting close to the World Cup, but I would like to say, look at what England has done bringing in Lauren James just this year, the hot boot, the form player. It is not too late to upset the established order and to keep giving more new faces a go. And funnily enough, of course, the Matildas are playing England in the next international window.
They are. And Lauren James, also, I would say the better of the Jameses, wouldn't you say?
Look, you know, I'm not a Chelsea fan, so of course I'm going to say Lauren James is the better of the two Jameses.
I'd like to think so anyway. Well, guys, you've heard from Teo and Kath, but there's also the opportunity to tell us who you think was the ALW player of the Cup of Nations. We've got a poll up on Liberty A-League's socials. So go give it a vote. Let us know what you think. We've obviously got some results in already with Chidiac
I don't have that many
leading
burners.
away. There you go. They love Chids. People love Chids. We love Gorey. We love Hunt. We love Courtney Vine as well. Courtney Vine, obviously, a fantastic performance throughout the Cup of Nations too. It's exactly what we want to see from her as we head in to the Women's World Cup. But there you go, guys. Give us your votes and we'll check the polls a bit later.
It's a bit of an all-star 4, isn't it? I mean, I was looking at those names and I'm like, I'm stuck on choice. So hashtag Dubzone, get onto Dubzone, put your own vote in, help me decide. I'm going to see what you guys think and then I'll make my decision for there. But let's head back to Newey and see how that game is unfolding, Teo.
Well, it's really going to be one-way traffic in this second half. And, Catherine, the red card for Emily Garnier, first of all, we saw the highlight before. Would you have given a straight red or do you think it was a yellow? Because I don't mind the referee's call. I think it was a straight red card.
Look, it could have went either way. I don't think there was much malice in it at all in saying that. At the end of the day, whether it was going to be a yellow or a straight red, she was coming off the pitch either way.
So in this half, Newcastle have actually had the best chance to score so far. Josie Morley got around Hilary Beale, but there were a couple of covering defenders back and it wasn't a very powerful shot and thus got saved off the goal line by one of the defenders. I apologise, it wasn't Josie Morley, it was Lara Gooch. Definitely a player to watch out for in the future. Now, the stats, Catherine, 15 total shots for Western United, 8 on target. Newcastle, 5 shots, 3 on target, so they've had their opportunities, but XG 2.02 to 0.24. And you said off air before when we were watching this game, real similarities to the first half against Canberra United. The difference today is, though, Sydney FC still has a much better goal difference than Western United, at least they did before kickoff. So Western United has every incentive to push on with their 11 versus 10 advantage here, and they definitely, as we see, nice little bit of play from Lara Gooch, not leave the door open for Newcastle to maybe repair the damage and all of a sudden maybe they walk away 4-2 winners and they don't get the boost of the goal difference that they were after.
They will really need to look at that in this whole 90 minutes now, and they can't take their foot off the pedal because this league now is so exciting, and with Sydney FC right behind them there, it's going to go right down to the last round, I can see. And today's game is a great opportunity for Western United to really get up that goal difference.
So as far as the table is concerned, Western United are now plus 18 goal difference. Sydney FC are plus 17 after their 1-0 win today against the Wellington Phoenix. So that first half's actually put them ahead on goal difference. They've got a chance here in behind with Carly Johnson again. It's been blocked away. Danger not yet averted. And we see the ball go back to Angie Beard. We'll just stay with play. Watch it shake out here. Crossed in. The first shot missed. The second makes it 5. And Western United, Danielle Steer has her second goal for the green and black. And the Canadian-Australian dual citizen has piled on the pain here for Newey. And it means that it is 5-0 now, Catherine. And we said goal difference is going to be crucial. They improved to plus 19, Sydney FC plus 17. So they play each other a week from today on Sunday. Western United showing their good form.
That is going to be the game of the whole season, I reckon. But, you know, in saying that, looks like it's going to be a really tough afternoon for the Newcastle Jets fans. You know, it's been hard enough with all the, the changes that they've had there over the last few weeks, and now to go down to 10 men and to try and play this game in the heat of Newcastle at the moment. I think Western United is going to really take this game to the next level now.
Now, we have to talk about the situation on the sidelines, because we might be watching the most successful coaching debut in the history of this competition. Mark Torcasco tore his calf, did not travel with the team, and Helen Winterburn, who we've been talking up on this show as a coach to watch. She's English, but has been living in Australia for, I think, 4 or 5 years now. She's got a UEFA A licence and has been coaching the junior NTC team in Victoria. Then she coached the senior NTC team. Now she's actually moving on to Calder next winter. But this is her first game in the hot seat as a senior coach. Hey, 5-0 after 55 minutes. Must be wondering, how easy is this caper?
She might be able to actually break the record that Mark Torcasco couldn't do versus Canberra. So in saying that, look, I've got to give Mark a little shout out for his torn calf. Normally I would be sitting here laughing that he tore his calf, but I actually did that in a game a few months back.
Sorry, I'm going to laugh at the circumstances.
And it is one of the most painful injuries that I've ever gone through, and somebody told me that it was a middle-aged injury, which I wasn't happy about. So,
cop that. Yeah.
But look, on another note, it's fantastic to see her in the hot seat and be able to take charge of the team, and you know, it's amazing to see another female for me in this role, and I hope to see a lot more of her in the Liberty A League as well.
You saw another chance there for young Lara Gooch. Now, she missed the first half of the season, building her fitness, coming back from injury, but she's actually been in Leah Blaney's young Matildas. Very promising player. This is not us, trying to find a positive talking point for Newcastle. I think we would have talked about her regardless. She's only 18 years old and only turned 18 earlier this month. So someone who, very much a teenager, got her debut last season, but is now starting to get a few more minutes. She's quick, she's tricky, and if she can just get her body right, Catherine, huge amount of potential there. And we say Newcastle, they're good to bring through at least one a season. I think this season, the one they're bringing through is Lara Gooch.
Yeah, of course. Look, Lara's a great young talent coming through the Liberty A League, and it's fantastic to see these young girls being able to have an opportunity to be able to get game time and play. What we can't really forget is that Newcastle actually develops a lot of players in this league, and if you look at a lot of the girls that started at the Newcastle Jets that are now playing in other Liberty A League teams, there's a fair few out there. Just the unfortunate thing is that they don't get to actually keep them together and keep them at Newcastle Jets to make that a successful team that they can keep building on, and that's probably something that now with Gary Van Egmond taking over the Newcastle Jets, it's probably something that they need to start looking at in terms of long-term future there.
Well, we talked about this when Ash Wilson left. We had you on the show as a guest. As far as if you were setting the ground rules for Newcastle in their search for a permanent coach for next season, assume Gary Van Egmond goes back to his job with the Youth Boys Academy, which is his current role before being seconded into this position. What are the key principles and sort of the selling points that you would want to set for Newcastle as a club? As far as budget to recruit internationals, the ability to retain your locals, the ability to relocate players from Sydney, but also from the rest of the country if you like the look of someone in Adelaide or Melbourne. And they've got Emily Roach here, who's a Queenslander, who's making her debut for them today. What sort of ground rules would you put in place as a club before you start your coaching search in order to make sure you get the right person, but also someone that can actually try to finally get a bit of sustained long-term success for this Newcastle team?
Look, I'll say it over and over again. The most important factor is the coach for the team, because the whole recruitment, the planning, the organisation, it is an all year round job. And I think if Newcastle are serious about, wanting to take the A-League women's team to another level, we need to look at, employing coaches full time in this environment, whether they're just with the A-League women's all year round or whether they split their time working, across some youth teams or other spaces in the football department as well. I just think it's important that your full focus is on the A-League women's team, and to rebuild something, it just doesn't happen overnight. It's something that really is going to take time, and I think the great thing that Newcastle has for them is that they've got an abundance of youngsters coming through. One
thing that we didn't quite get to when we spoke to you as a guest on Dub Zone a couple of weeks ago if you turn being an A-League women's coach into a full-time 12-month-of-the-year job, it doesn't just help the pathway for women, though. It really incentivises coaching in the A-League women's or aspiring men's coaches. And, like it or not, men's coaches do use this competition as a stepping stone. It's a televised league. You get a great deal of exposure. You probably get a greater platform than the NPL to sell yourself to a national audience. So how do you introduce quotas of the number of female coaches that have to be employed full-time by clubs? How do you make sure that improving the coaching contract or landscape for an A-League women's coach doesn't simply create a greater influx of men's coaches who see it as a really good opportunity to work full-time in football?
I think it's really important that we just set a great pathway for coaches in general, whether it be males or females, in saying that, we need to be offering more, scholarships and ways that we can actually get more females involved in the game. If you look at the overall number of females that are actually in the game coaching, and you can go from NPL level all the way into the A-League women's, there's a very, very small amount, and that's a bit concerning. So it's going to be hard at the moment to set quotas for females in that space at the moment until we actually get the number of people or number of females involved in coaching and in roles. But in saying that, I think overall we need to really look at how do we make A-League women's coaches into a full-time role so we can start supporting them, because right now the only coaches that are full-time is probably less than 50 at this point in time in Australia.
There's a comment here from Megan saying that you're absolutely right and that coaching definitely needs to be a full-time occupation. It's a no-brainer, really, when you think what the landscape is of football and the coaching prospects around the world. It makes sense to make those same opportunities a local opportunity as well. But I'm curious, in your experience playing, was it ever something that you talked about with other players around aspirations to take your football to that side instead, or at the end of your playing career to then move to the coaching side? Because obviously that's the route that you took, but was that something that other players aspired to do as well, or was it more of a rarity?
I think it was more of a rarity. I think maybe players might speak about it more now, because I'm a true believer of you can't be what you can't see. And, as a young player growing up, there wasn't very many female coaches that I could say, I want to be like this person and I want to be a coach. And I never really thought about coaching, to be honest, when I was playing. I was more focused on, playing and being the best player that I could be at the time. It was only when I had decided to step away from the game that, I think I was off for about 9 months and I was at home and I really didn't know what to do with myself. Being a footballer and training pretty much every day, you're in a routine. So having those nights off and actually not having any idea of what to do with myself, I actually went down to my local association, which is Southern Districts Football Association, and said, I want to volunteer my time. I want to come down and I want to just do sessions for every single team in the club. And, for me, I'm so fortunate, so lucky that they've been such a massive supporter of my career and my football in my coaching journey. That's who I work for now full-time. Something that I went down and volunteered has now given me the opportunity to work in football full-time. And again, I can't thank them enough, because I wouldn't have been able to, aspire to be involved with the Wanderers and be a head coach there, because, ultimately I've been, employed full-time by the Southern Districts Association.
I mean, it's clear that they're also very fortunate to have someone like yourself on board, because you played the game here, you understand it, and I think you have a heart for the game that is hard to find from coaches that haven't played in it prior to that. I'm just curious as well, who's your biggest source of inspiration as a manager? Is there someone here in Australia, or is there someone overseas, be it Alex Ferguson? Like, is there someone that you look at and think that's the type of manager that I'm inspired by?
Alex Ferguson is definitely someone that, I've always sort of looked up to, and, he's done some absolutely amazing things. And I was actually a bit disappointed when we actually had him down at Campbelltown Stadium and nobody told me about it, because I definitely would have went down there. And I know many people at MacArthur that could have spilled the news to me, so I was disappointed that I didn't get to meet him. But in saying that as well, Alan Stajic is one that, really helped me through my coaching journey. I was fortunate enough to coach his daughter at Southern District, so to have him there with me, and, everyone knows what a football tragic he is, and whenever he wasn't with the Matildas, he was there coaching the under-14s, SD Raiders girls with me. So, just being able to have someone to sort of talk to and bounce ideas off. And again, we have all these licenses, and all the licenses are fantastic, but you you get thrown out there and you're on your own. There's not really any mentoring, or I'm very lucky that I've got a really good circle of people in football that I can pick up the phone and call and have a chat and sort of debrief on things and get some advice where a lot of people don't.
Well, I was going to say, if you weren't a former Matilda and a former A-League women's player and you hadn't had that opportunity to build a network, would you say it's borderline impossible?
100%.
Wow.
It's borderline impossible, and that's something that I'm on the board of the Football Coaches Australia, and they're things that are really it touches my heart, because we've made a difference as players. We've been standing up for the game, and we've seen what an amazing transformation of footballers now, that they can call this their full-time job. And I want to see this for coaches, and especially female coaches. I don't want you to only be a former A-League player or a former Matilda to only be able to coach, because your passion for football doesn't mean it comes from just being a player. It can come from all walks of life. So I really, really want to see one day a female coach that wasn't a former player, that is just passionate, that wants to just take their coaching to the next level.
It's so interesting, having grown up watching football and realising, I've just had a revelation in that moment when you were saying that I can't think of a female player who wasn't a female coach, who wasn't a former player. And that in itself is kind of mind-blowing, because there's obviously pathways for players to take that experience that they have on the pitch and become the strategy masters for starting 11.
Well, I mean,
but
a great example, someone like a Jose Mourinho or an Andre Villas-Boas, guys that came from great coaching sort of culture in Portugal, but didn't have to have the runs on the board as ex-players in order to command the respect of a dressing room. And I feel as though that's a hurdle, Catherine, that is a really difficult one to jump at any level of the game.
It is, and I think it's a massive hurdle, not just in women's football, but in men's football as well. Because there are a lot of great coaches out there, and again, the pathways for coaches in Australia are not there quite yet. And until we start to show people that there is an actual pathway, and there's a vision of where you can start, in the grassroots, and you can make your way through MPO, and you can make your way into the A-League, and until we actually show people that there is an actual pathway and there is opportunities, a lot of people won't take that up, because to be a coach, it takes a lot of time and effort. And a lot of money.
It's a tough job. It's brutal, and I think I have massive respect to anyone who takes on a job like that, because it's so high pressure. But I did just want to call out this tweet that we got. It was just on the screen before, but I'm reading it off the iPad. Should Tony G double check Michelle Heyman is retired? I've got a Dub/Tilly's GOAT statue on hold just in case. What are your guys' thoughts?
Michelle Heyman's not retired. It's Melissa Barbieri who's retired from the national team. Michelle Heyman's an active player, and it's just when we asked her on Dub Zone if she expected her phone to call, she said probably not.
See, but I think that's the interesting part of it all, is should she be getting that call?
You know what? If Remy Seamson doesn't actually get on the field for Leicester and start putting together a run of games, and I realise that, not to be a habitual contrarian here, I wasn't as down on Larissa Crummer as everyone else was during the Cup of Nations. If I had to name my squad tomorrow, Crummer would be a standby. She wouldn't be in the 23. Maybe she goes on a good run before the end of the season, and I would say put her in the 23. But Michelle Heyman, Catherine, is in great form. I don't know if I want to pick Michelle Heyman in my Matildas team for the World Cup. How do you feel?
I think it's a real tough one, because she has been scoring goals and she has been in form. I think it's just really tough in terms of who she's going up against, I think for Michelle, I think she's just enjoying her football, and if the call comes, it comes, and I don't think she's sort of, banking on that. Tony might be thinking, she's just past her time now, and that he's looking for others that he knows that he could maybe take on past this Women's World Cup as well.
It's a funny thought around the age element, because I feel like we're in a transitional period of football now where you are seeing that some of the best players on the pitch are older than they have been in the past, especially when you look at the last World Cup.
Well, Messi's
not the youngest
example.
guy.
I mean, she's been able to overcome injury issues, feeling as though she was slowing down. She's had an epiphany in terms of, diet, sports science, all that sort of thing, where perhaps her career might have been winding down 2 to 3 years ago. Instead, she's actually in as good a form as she's ever been, having had a total rejuvenation.
I feel like this is the sign of a sport really maturing, though. Like we've seen it in different ones when we can start getting some of our best players, the GOATs, being these older women especially, that don't need to retire. Like they can keep playing, they can show that they've still got that respect. And of course, you always have the new young guns coming in, adding fresh blood. But it's exciting to see that, these older players are sticking around and schooling.
Absolutely.
Schooling the teams.
And the experience is invaluable. It's the years of experience that they can bring, what Michelle Heyman can do and adapt and recognise because of all the years that she's played and understand the game in a way that a younger player who might need more years in order to be able to interpret the game the way that Michelle Heyman would naturally interpret it, given years of experience.
I think the longer you play, the better player you get. And even as a coach, I think, doing my coaching badges, I always said to the girls, for the older ones, go and do a coaching badge and go and see, football from a different perspective as well. It's always great to see it from a different lens. And I think as well, we've got to really talk about, Michelle Heyman at her age and, how great she actually is looking. She's looking fit, she's looking healthy. And that's got to be a credit to, obviously how far women's football has come and her being able to still be involved in the game, because no one actually realises that the older you get, you actually have to put in more time and effort to make sure that your body is healthy, that you're keeping fit, and that you're being able to, back up 90 minutes week in and week out. And it's not as easy anymore because the game has gone to another level, especially on the physicality side.
Exactly. And look, do you think there's any spots where the Matildas are coming in just a little bit deficient?
Look, it's a tough one to say, right? It's a, in terms of where the Matildas are at and, the Liberty A-League, we're in completely different times of where we were 5-6 years ago. But what we've got to say as well is that, football in Australia at the moment has been, growing, but we're still not at a point where we should be.
Yeah.
I would say it's probably a left-sided attacking player, as in a natural left footer rather than playing an inverted winger. The only issue is, other than Beattie Goad, who have we got that's a natural left-sided attacking player that's also in good enough form and at sort of the right time to be called up into the national team? I'm not saying that it should be Beattie Goad. I mean, at least Gustafsson has capped her during his tenure, but it was as a left-back. And I also, when we had Beattie Goad on Dub Zone, we asked her about Jeff Hopkins using her as a left-back, using her as a Swiss Army knife that can play in positions that she's not suited to. And she openly said, I don't enjoy playing in that left-back position. But I feel as though if Beattie Goad was to have a storming into the season, maybe Victory does what they did last year, they finish fourth and then win the grand final from fourth, and Beattie Goad's the best player on the pitch in the grand final, playing as a left winger, maybe. But other than, in terms of the squad I would take to the World Cup and the squad I think Tony's going to take to the World Cup, I think with Tony G. Brain, B-R-A-N-E, and try to anticipate what he's going to do. I'm only about 3 or 4 out. And before the Cup of Nations, I was 5 or 6 out. So I feel as though, in terms of, we're quibbling in the margins here. For the most part, the Matildas have got a team that we can really get behind at this World Cup.
Oh, it's exciting. But I think there was a great tweet that came up.
Speaking of the Matildas, we found out this week as well that we'll be playing the Lionesses in a couple of months' time, so not too far away. This will be before we head into the Women's World Cup. A nice friendly to warm us up. What are your thoughts on that? And I mean, like any friendly, anything can happen, but I think it's a great opportunity for the Matildas to really give themselves a good shot at warming up for that World Cup.
Let's not forget, last time we played them in England, it was at Craven Cottage in 2019. We drew 1-1. And then we beat Great Britain, so not England, but Great Britain at the Olympics. Catherine, they're a team that's gone through a total revolution with Serena Wiegmann in charge since. But then they're not the finished article by any stretch, because they had Ellen White retire after winning the Euros. They've had some key players that have maybe had dips in form or not held on to their spots. They are trying new faces. They even called up a player after an 8-year absence in Laura Coombs. So Serena Wiegmann's casting the net pretty wide and has even called for 26 players instead of 23 in the squads at the World Cup. So it suggests to me that England, even though they're getting the results, they are a little bit more indecisive than maybe they'd want to be this far from a World Cup.
I don't think they're completely set on their team leading into the World Cup, but we can't underestimate Wiegmann. She's such a fantastic coach, and she's had success before, which is great. England's, say the England name, and they're just a powerhouse, right, when it comes to football. And, they've got an amazing league in the WSL at the moment, and they're producing some great players through there, and it's one of the best leagues in the world. And for us, for the Matildas going to London and playing that game, I think firstly, a lot of the girls are going to be really excited that they don't have to fly all the way to Australia, because that, takes its toll on their bodies, and, it probably does affect their performances as well. And it's not easy to transition, back and forth out of Europe. But I think it's a really good test, even though the Cup of Nations was fantastic to have this tournament here, and the girls got, their wins on the board, and they got to hold up the cup, and it's really good to start to replicate what you want to do in a few months' time. But I really, truly believe playing England is a huge test, because we may come up against them come quarterfinal times.
And I will say, and I don't want to steal anyone's thunder, I'll let the proper authorities announce it, it's not the only friendly we're playing in that window. There'll be a match before the England game, so it will be the second of 2 games we play in April.
Teo, just teasing us like that.
The insider knowledge.
Says he's not going to drop it, but just drops that he knows it anyway. Oh, well, look, we've got the Pride Cup coming up at 5:55. That's when it kicks off at Amy Park. And we are joined now by a guest who's joining us from there. It is Pokuah Frimpong who joins us. Hello, how are you doing? How's the atmosphere at Stadium?
It's good. The energy is good. DJ Havana Brown was DJing before, and I was getting my boogie on, and I was like, I feel the energy. I like it.
And that's what we want to hear. It is a doubleheader, so the men's is underway. How are our men playing so far?
Well, that game just finished and ended up in a 1-1 draw, but Irankunda scored an absolute belter of a goal that I think will give three players some nightmares for a little while.
Oh, we love to hear it.
Pokuah, thank you so much for the chat earlier. That was really fun. If you missed it, we did have a little live chat on Instagram earlier after some slight technical difficulties, but look, that's just what happens on the internet. You can't help it. So we touched on your life as a commentator. This is the first season where you've really come in to the A-League Women's, and you're running full steam ahead with calling the games. Talk us a bit through that experience and what it's been like from the first time you did it to where you're at now. What's it been like?
It's been hectic. It's been a massive experience, and getting training with Robbie Thompson to start with, and then getting help from the likes of Teo and stuff like that. It's been great, and I've learned so much, and there's so many things you have to constantly improve on, but it's been a great experience, and doing like during Taran, it's fantastic.
Pokuah, it's Catherine Cannuli here. It's always been great being alongside you in the co-commentary team. You're a fantastic talent. In saying that, commentary is generally a male-dominated industry. How have you found, your feet in the league, and, have you got any role models in that female space?
I think it's been daunting, but I think that the male voices have been so welcoming and being so willing to give advice, things like that it's been really, really great. And I don't think I have one commentary in terms of a female role model like that, but I guess I got Doris Burke. I don't know if that's somebody who I look up to.
Pokuah, I'm going to have to cut you off here because there's been a goal at number 2 Sports Ground. The Golden Boot leader, Hannah Keane, has scored, and it is now 6-0 to Western United against the Newcastle Jets. And we will get to what that means in terms of record tally soon, but a really nice hit strike on the right foot there. But Catherine, did you have another question for Pokuah there? Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's all good. It's really great to see you, Pokuah, in the league and doing the commentating. Well done.
Pokuah, I wanted to...
I just want to say thank you for mentioning that Hannah Keane thing, because Hannah Keane's scoring has got me more points to victories applies in fantasy, and I'm very excited.
Yeah, well, I don't want to talk about fantasy after Taryn gave me a near 100-point shellacking last round. Pokuah, you do host a podcast called Radio Dub, so, thanks for not getting us into any copyright situations here. But I wanted to talk to you a bit. We've been discussing coaching today, and you yourself have a coaching philosophy. Would you like to share that coaching philosophy with us and explain to us why you believe that Alex Apakis at Perth Glory is one of the best coaches in the league, but also why you also think that Mark Torcasco is having such a good season?
No, okay. I know I see how you've set me up for this, Sarah, but the philosophy is dress well, coach well, and the team plays well. Because I just believe that if you dress well, you're feeling great about yourself, and then say the best things possible, and then everybody's going to be playing well. And I think Alex Marcus has been doing it, set himself as a fashion icon. Mark Torcasco is going with sports, different fashion styles, but it's all worth it.
Well, I said that I had 3 days to think of a question to stitch you up with, but you've answered it with aplomb there, so well done.
See, you can't set me up.
And look, we'll let you go shortly, but I've also heard that football isn't the only sport you're going to be doing some commentary on. I hear there might be some dribbling involved, some basketball perhaps?
That is true. I will be doing some basketball commentary. Hopefully they don't get sick of me around, but I'll be doing that with friend of mine, and it'll be a lot of fun. And I do love the NBA. I go for the NBA, but I do it.
Well, we're so excited for our Pride Cup to kick off very, very soon. So have a great time with that. And we're going to take it back to more football here in Dub Zone now. Thank you so much for joining us, Pokuah.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
I tried my best.
You did.
Thought, how do I put her on the spot with something awkward? Because, she talks a lot of smack, Pokuah. And I thought, well, let's see if she wants to roll out the dress well, coach well, play well philosophy. And it turns out that, she was willing to back it up. So very, very nice
Kath,
to hear.
Thoughts on that philosophy?
Look, maybe next time I get a coaching gig, I might have to, hit up maybe Hugo Boss or
No,
something to,
I love it.
dress me or
No,
maybe
see,
I might get some more
humour
wins
is
on the
that
board.
She said that it applied to Mark Torcasco, even though he often wears a beanie in NPL Victoria or he wears shorts. Like, he's not wearing a suit on the sidelines here. So Alex Aparkis, the whole joke is that he wears Stone Island, and Perth Glory regularly tweet out what he's wearing as part of their pre-game sort of routine. But hey, they're on a 4-game winning streak, the Glory. So as soon as you find a winning combination, you stick to it.
If I may, I do think Alex Aparkis looks great every week. Am I allowed to say that?
You're allowed to say it.
Okay.
He does, dressing sharp. It's something people just notice. And look, you mentioned before that 6 means something special when we talk about this Newey game now being at 6-0. What does it mean, Teo?
Well, Newcastle's 3 heaviest defeats in history. They have lost 6-0 twice to the Brisbane Roar in 2009, to Melbourne Victory in 2013, but they have lost 7-0 to Melbourne Victory in 2020. So they've got just over 10 minutes here to make that happen. Western United, it would be the record equalling defeat. Hilary Beale has been subbed off here, so Alyssa Daloste comes on. She gets an A-League Women's debut, and it looks as though Western United are going to not just empty the bench here, but they are going to also give a little bit of an opportunity to their backup goalkeeper. We saw Ante Juric do this last season, actually, in a game against the Wellington Phoenix when he brought on Katie Offer for Jada Wyman in a game where the scoreline was just about safe and secure. So that's a nice touch there from Helen Winterburn, the coach, to give Alyssa Daloste her first ever appearance in the competition.
Yeah, can I ask, from a coaching perspective, when you are up significantly, is it, no, we don't pull back, or is it time to give those players a bit of a run who've, been warming up the bench for a while?
I think it's, depends on where we're at in the season and what's going on, and there's a lot of different factors to it. In saying that, it's really great to see that they've given the second keeper now an opportunity to play, because you don't know what's going to happen in football. Knock on wood for the poor girl. I don't want to jinx Hilary Beale, but if something was to happen, she needs to find her feet and be able to take that position up. And if you get a few minutes here and there, it actually helps their confidence as well. And I think it's really important for the second keeper, especially that in normal you don't really see much of.
That's right. They sort of, I can only imagine the nerves stepping over that white line. We talk about white line fever. Well, I think that's white line anxiety. If you're the second keeper, you've got to come on and be sharp.
I think this is what they're waiting for, though,
Yeah.
right? Especially when you've had a season like Western United's, the likelihood is that second keeper to come on, you're kind of waiting for an injury or something. So this is a great opportunity for her to get that precious game time, which is hard to come by when you are that second keeper.
Well, especially given they're going for the title. I mean, if they were sort of landlocked into third, or next season when we have a top 6, we might see teams sort of, from 3, 4 and 5. They're not really in danger of missing the finals, but they're also not going to win the title. That's where teams are going to get really experimental and start mixing it up. But every point's crucial. As of right now, Western can finish on 45 points. Sydney FC can finish on 45 points. They play each other. But, Catherine, you don't want to take too many risks, but at the same time, we've seen titles, we've seen semi-finals, we've even seen championships decided by a team having to turn to their backup goalkeeper in the final series, either because of a red card or because of an injury. I mean, just go back to last season, Melissa Barbieri getting sent off against Sydney FC in the semi-final. Sally James comes in totally cold for the preliminary final. Melbourne City get knocked out. So these are precious, precious minutes here for the worst case scenario if Hilary Beale was injured or suspended at an even later stage of the season.
100%, and that's the reason why they've probably made this change. And in saying that, if the top two wasn't so close, I think she might have got a few more extra minutes. But I think now, in this back end of this match now, just to get her on there, get her a feel for it, I think that really, really helps her confidence if anything was to happen and Western United would have to call on her.
Couple more minutes to go with this one, but we do have the lineups just come through for our Pride Cup. So, Teo, can you talk us through who's going to be taking the field?
Absolutely. So Melbourne Victory, they make 2 changes. Alana Murphy comes in to replace the departed Alex Chidiac, who has gone back to the NWSL. Melina Ayres starts for the first time since her hamstring injury. She had one appearance off the bench. Tiff Eliadis goes to the bench. Lydia Privatelli comes back from 1 game's absence injured. Of course, Alex Chidiac is out. Adelaide United, Mindy Barbieri starts. Fiona Wirtz is added back to the bench. Amelia Murray moves to the bench. Sasha Curry out of the matchday squad. Fiona Wirtz missed the game in Adelaide 21 days ago, Catherine Cannulli. Adelaide haven't played in ages. Do you think they will have made the most of this 3-week break to just try and hit reset as a team and get all of that bad form out of their system?
For me, it's unbelievable that I haven't played in 21 games. And in saying that, we know where Adelaide's season has been, especially in these past few months. And, I hope that, Adrian Stenter really gave them a good period of time off where they could sort of let their hair down and sort of switch off from football a little bit and maybe regroup as a group and, come back firing for these last few rounds of the season as well.
We know that Fiona Wirtz has had, the defending Dolan medalist, has had a really horrible season in terms of finding form, getting back to her best. She suffered a minor injury which kept her out for a couple of weeks early in the season, has only scored the 1 goal so far this campaign, and then was more or less in tears, so upset that she wasn't well enough to play last time Adelaide did play back on the 5th of February. I mean, she's back on the bench today, but what do you do in this situation where expectations have so far exceeded your output? Because she went from, a bit part player that was an option for Adelaide to the Dolan medalist and the best player in the competition, kind of back to where she was. I mean, she's kind of regressed to the mean and wouldn't feel, I think, that different as a player. And yet here we are expecting the world of her because we know what her best looks like now.
Look, we always talk about how hard it is to win back-to-back seasons, right? And how difficult it may be and the odds are always sort of against you. But as a player as well, I think Fiona Wirtz had one of her best seasons. She was the Golden Boot winner. She was the Julie Dalton medalist, and she had a fantastic season. And then coming into this season now, she was, carrying that injury. She didn't find the form that she wanted to. And I think sometimes we forget that these players are still human, and mentally sometimes it's really hard to come back from that. And when things aren't happening for you, it's about trying to find different solutions to make you sort of successful. And that obviously wasn't working for her, and she wasn't dealing well with maybe not being that superstar. And also Stenter was trying different things, and there was a time where she went to the bench and she didn't even take the field of play, which goes to show that she's probably not having a great time mentally as well, and it's difficult to come back from. But in saying that, it's fantastic to see her back on the bench for this round as well.
Very intrigued to see what minute she comes on.
Just on that, do you think there's any major changes in the way Stenter's put his team together this season versus last season that may have impacted her performance?
I don't think so. I think it was mainly, she was carrying that little injury, and sometimes, it plays in the back of your mind. And, especially as a striker, you want to be scoring goals, and you sort of beat yourself up if you're not putting the ball in the back of the net. And when it doesn't happen and it continues not to happen, between Wirtz and Dorber last season, I think they scored over 30 goals between them, I think it was. And this season, I think they've got about 5 at the moment. And that just goes to show when your strikers aren't firing and it's not working for them, unfortunately, it's been the, outlook of their season overall at the moment.
It is the position which ultimately impacts your position on the table so heavily, doesn't it?
That's why the strikers get paid the big bucks, right? And that's why they're always the superstars. They always get the players of the match. They get all that because that is your job. I know we always we don't talk much about goalkeepers and defenders stopping goals, but, the glory is in the scoring of the goals. And, I really, really feel for her because she did have a fantastic season last year. But, every year the clock gets reset and you've got to be able to have that mentality and have that desire and willingness to go to that next level again.
Oh, we're going to just relive the 6th goal that went in the back of the net as we were speaking to Pokuah Frimpong, because this game's about to tick into stoppage time, and we have mentioned that right now it is the equal second heaviest defeat the Newcastle Jets have ever suffered in the A-League Women's. But this is goal number 11 of the season for the Golden Boot, Hannah Keane. There she is, just hanging out next to absolutely no one. There was a defensive wall set for this free kick, and Catherine Cannulli, very clever set-piece routine, and that's a good finish on a tight angle.
They definitely practiced that about 15 times at training, game day -1, that's for sure. And, they just caught Newcastle Jets off guard there, and coming to these last, bits in the game would be really tough for Newcastle as well.
They've scored 6 goals from 2.69 XG, so they were already running away as the most efficient team in front of goal in the A-League Women's as far as outshooting their XG. Today, they've done more or less what you'd expect from an XG of 2.69, which is to score 5 or 6. And they may not get the record, but as a club, I believe it is their record win, going past the 5-0 against Canberra United inaugural season. But they've really flexed their muscle today. And doesn't it feel like a long, long time ago that Newcastle really beat them point blank down in Ballarat in the home game?
I was there in the flesh, and it was, I tell you what, the Newey fans, they went off. It was box office Jets that day. Sadly, a bit of a different tale this evening.
The problem is you're not.
I know. You got to send me to these home ground games. I mean, don't worry, we'll be again next week or whenever. But yeah, I did feel a little bit like a lucky charm. Not gonna lie.
So we're into stoppage time of this game. Both teams have more or less emptied the benches here, but Western United are still on top and still challenging. And there's a header on goal for Adriana Taranto, which is held onto by the goalkeeper Georgie Worth. So another tough afternoon here for the Jets. It also means this result that if victory win this afternoon, Newcastle will be 1 point away from being mathematically eliminated from the finals. Not that we thought they were going to close the gap in any case, but it does mean as though their season will be mathematically over, and maybe they'll start to try some new combinations. We've seen Josie Morley get subbed on for the first time this season today. We've seen Renee Pountney, who's come back from Creighton University in the United States. She's Newcastle homegrown, 22 years old now, so Gary Van Egmond, in addition to bringing Lara Gooch into the starting 11, is also starting to reach into the depths of his squad and give game time to players that otherwise may not have been near the team if they were still in finals contention. And Catherine, that's what you got to do when you're resetting and looking for a winning combination, but also long-term players that are going to recommit to the club for future seasons. Because again, as we know, one of the great difficulties of Newcastle is if you're a standout player, it's really not hard for Western Sydney or Sydney FC to lure you down the motorway and bring you to Sydney to sign for them. We've seen Claire Wheeler do it. We've seen Courtney Vine do it. We've seen Kirsty Fenton do it. It tends to happen that Newcastle don't actually get to enjoy the fruits of their labour, whether it's identifying a player and giving them an opportunity from interstate or from Sydney, or whether it's bringing through one of their homegrown academy products.
I think, Gary's going to have a big job on his hands here, and I'm sure, with Ash now leaving and the Newcastle Jets looking at something different coming, into, next season, everything from now to the end of the season will be about planning and, offering players, multi-year contracts or another contract for next year, because they need to really make sure that they are locking in, especially, the youngsters that do have talent that, might want to look elsewhere, or other clubs are going to come knocking as well.
And Newcastle, their next game is against Melbourne City in Newcastle. So Emily Garnier will be suspended. I imagine she'll only get one game for that straight red card. It wasn't violent conduct. So, last man foul, I think that'll only be a one-game suspension. You wouldn't think she'd get more than one for the red?
I don't think she'll get more than one.
Yeah. But it's another gap that they're going to have to fill. Now, they're out onto Amy Park, Cat Haddad, for the Pride Cup and for the Victory versus Adelaide game.
And speaking of the Pride Cup, we are going to be speaking to Emma Checker later in the show, which is very exciting. Emma plays for Melbourne City. She has 7 caps with the Matildas. I'm really looking forward to having that chat with her, because she came out with this beautiful article about her experience coming out to her family with her sexuality and everything that kind of came from that. And I suppose the support that we do see in Pride Round, and the fact that we are using this as an opportunity to get behind players who've experienced something similar or just in general. And I saw a really lovely comment, Kath, that said, you can't, to quote you can't see, if you can't see it, you can't be it. Wow, it took me a second to get that out. You can't see it. If you help me out here, Taylor. I can't say it
If you
right.
can't see it, you can't be it.
You can't
see
be
it.
what you can't see. Do you want me to
Thanks,
re-quote
guys.
it again for you?
Now,
Wow.
I will help you out. The full-time whistle's gone
Wow.
up in Newcastle. So the second heaviest defeat ever suffered by the Newcastle Jets, Western United 6, Newcastle Jets 0. You can see the goal scorers there. 2 for Carly Johnson, her first 2 in the A-League Women's. Fantastic for her to break through. TJ Vlanich, an own goal. Hannah Keane, just an absolute romp from the Western United team in the end, and a pretty handy day out.
Great day out for Western United. Not such a great day for the Newcastle Jets, but it was great to get another 3 points for Western United, and again to her surname Winterbottom.
Helen Winterburn.
Winterburn.
You're thinking of the V8s
Winterburn to be on the sidelines, to be able to be in charge of her first match. I think it's really great to see, and well done to her as well.
And I think we've heard that we will be chatting to Winterburn later as well. So very exciting stuff. I mean, what a debut, as you said, for a coach.
I think, 6-0 in your first game. It doesn't
Not
get much
bad.
better than that. Now, we've had kickoff here. Of course, Victory are wearing their Pride kit. Adelaide have the rainbow numbers. So, slight kit clash in terms of dark versus dark. So, hopefully, the shadows get across the ground and it's not too difficult to tell the two teams apart. Adelaide, of course, normally wear the coral away kit here. But Melbourne Victory kicking off in this one, Catherine Cannuli. The burning question is, how do they replace Alex Chidiac? And in the lineup today, we've seen Alana Murphy given the first opportunity. It's not a like for like, but Murphy is, a very attack-minded midfield player, has really shown us a lot in her 24 A-League women's games so far. And also great to see 2 former Matildas, Grace Gill and Alicia Ferguson, commentating this one if you want to hear the match commentary for yourself and do the split-screen experience. But look, what would you do if you were coaching Melbourne Victory, as far as you can't replace Alex Chidiac, but what contingency plans do you look to install?
Look, I just hope that, prior to Chid's moving on and finishing up her loan spell, that, she would have spent a lot of time with Alana Murphy in terms of mentoring and, sort of taking her under her wing, knowing that she was going to leave and that she would be taking her place. And we know that Alana Murphy is a great talent. She has shown glimpses of that in the games that she has played, and now it's up to her to be able to take this opportunity with both hands and really make that position her own. She's there next to KK, which she's in great hands. KK is a fantastic role model and mentor, especially on the field, to be able to guide her around, and it's going to be interesting to see.
We just saw a cross into the box from Beattie Goad, which Annalie Grove has plucked out of the air, but Beattie Goad staying on the left, not playing in the middle, because Murphy is in the team.
I think that's because they heard all of your comments before the game, which is amazing.
Now,
Teo.
here's a chance for Chelsea Dorbert. Nope, must be flag up for offside. Yeah, little clap of the hands together. So, a bit of an end-to-end first couple of minutes.
There's a comment here from Joe Chammer saying, Casey Dumont, my star keeper, sad that she hasn't been selected for the Matildas. I feel like Casey Dumont has come up quite a few times over the Dub Zone episodes, and that's because she is such a standout performer within the Liberty A-Leagues. But I want to throw it to you both, Kath and Teo, for your thoughts on that keeper option for the Matildas and whether or not you think TG should stick with what he's doing currently, or if the likes of bringing in a Casey Dumont is something that he should be doing.
I mean, he's in dreamland after this tournament because he's put what I think a lot of people thought was the third choice keeper, Mackenzie Arnold, in, and she's ended up winning player of the tournament. So I think, unfortunately, that closes the door on Casey Dumont. I think it closes the door, to be fair, on any other keeper unless there's an injury.
What a way to step up to the plate, though, honestly.
Yeah, look, I think it's going to be a really difficult one for Casey, even though she has had, a standout season and she's been, fantastic for Melbourne Victory. It's really, really tough because, Mackenzie Arnold has had a fantastic Cup of Nations, and, to sort of knock on that door now, it would have to be, only for an injury replacement. I think the best next thing that, she could probably hope for is that she goes in as sort of a number 4 and he gets put in and around the camp, that if something does go wrong, that she's there on standby, ready to go. But that's going to be interesting to see who he picks in that position as well.
So a great chance here for Melbourne Victory, this time breaking through the right flank. Catherine Zimmerman here with the cut back. and arriving in the penalty area. Decent chance, but hooked wide of the target. Zimmerman has come back from this broken leg and given such an impact, and, well, that was a pretty good opportunity there for Amy Jackson to score a goal. Of course, Amy Jackson was one of the few non-strikers to have scored a hat-trick in this league, and funnily enough, it was against Adelaide United. They're breaking away here. Mindy Barbieri playing against her former team, and that pass didn't quite have the bend on it to bring Dylan Holmes into play. And there is Adrian Stenter on the sidelines for Adelaide United. So really open game in these first couple of forays forward.
And both coaches, I must say, are looking quite sharp. So I don't know who's going to win these 3 points.
Well, they knew Pokuah was at the stadium. That's the issue.
It's fantastic to see both those coaches. They've been, great coaches in this Liberty A League as well. And I think today's going to be a really great game. I think both teams have got a lot to play for, and it's going to be interesting to see, come the 90 minutes, who's going to end up with the 3 points.
Well, the form line between these two is quite interesting because when they met at Amy Park in round 1 last season, that was the game where Kayla Morrison tore her ACL. Victory still won 5-1. Adelaide then beat Victory 3-0 at the end of home and away season, and it could have been more than 3. They absolutely dominated them over at Cooper Stadium. But then they played again in the finals. It was a far cagier game. Adelaide perhaps played their worst game of the season in that final, and they lost 2-1. So I think that as far as Adelaide coming into this game, they can't score a goal to save themselves. They've scored 7 for the season. They haven't scored 2 goals in a game for well over a year now, and yet they've come out of the blocks here in a real end-to-end open contest. So I guess the one risk is that if Victory score at least 1, the only way Adelaide wins is if they end this streak of not having scored 2 in a game for a very long time.
It has been such an unfortunate season for Adelaide this season, and I think if they do go...
Well, speaking of 1, there it is. Melina Ayres' cross has been bundled in by the goalkeeper, and I reckon she might just claim it. First start back from her hamstring injury, and it's frustration here for Adelaide, regardless of if it's an own goal or if it's Melina Ayres' goal. It is 1-0 to Melbourne Victory.
And I was just about to say, if Adelaide do go behind, first up, I think it's going to be really, really difficult for them mentally to come back from that because, unfortunately, when you've had a bad run of results and, that's all that's been happening, I think mentally sometimes it's really hard to pick yourself back up. But fantastic finish there from Melina Ayres, bit of a goalkeeping error, but, she put it in the back of the net at the end of the day.
Do you think it was going in regardless, or do you think that'll have to be an own goal?
I think it was going in regardless, to be honest. But, you see sometimes you sort of shank it off the side of the boot as well, which is a little bit unfortunate. But you don't think from that angle that someone's going to be able to shoot from there. And it's just unfortunate for Grove.
Well, Joey Lynch has written, Melina Ayres scores when she wants, sometimes scores when she doesn't.
We all know Melina Ayres can definitely put the ball in the back of the net. She's had an unfortunate run with injuries. So it's great to see her back on the pitch, but we want to be able to see her to be able to get consistent, 90 minutes week in, week out.
So 1-0, as we've said, Adelaide haven't scored 2 in a game since they beat Victory 3-0 at the back end of the home and away season last campaign. So they've got one heck of a task here if they want to get anything out of the game. Right now their focus has to be on not conceding more goals because that's gone behind for a corner kick. We're going to get another replay here. Jenna McCormick, who has really struggled to bring back her best football to Australia after her stint in Denmark, was beaten by Ayres there on the flank, and now it's a corner. And so all hands on the pump for Adelaide, because if they go 2-0 down, then this could be Victory really taking charge. And I can tell you right now that Perth and Canberra, they will be shouting at their TVs for Adelaide to lift their game, because Melbourne Victory is the team they're chasing for 4th spot at the moment. Here comes the corner kick into the near post, and it appears to have been flicked out for a goal kick, so relief there. But it's the time of the season, Catherine, where you have to drop any sort of pretense of rivalry, or we only focus on what we do. Do you think that Canberra or perhaps Perth as a team have got around to watch Dubzone or to watch the game today and just barrack for Adelaide and become Reds for the day?
Look, I'm not sure that all the players would be watching, but there definitely will be a handful of them that will really be following this game. In saying that, I'm sure both coaches will be watching this game very, very closely, seeing what's going to happen, leading into next week as well. So there's definitely a couple of Reds fans out there.
Now, look, we're very excited to say that earlier game we saw in Newcastle where Western United did win 6-0. Well, we've got the coach joining us now. It is Helen Winterburn. She debuted in place of Mark Torcasco. And Helen, how does it feel to come in with your coaching debut for this team and really lift the standard?
Hey guys, yeah, no, it's been a great day.
And
Really
how did
good
it
for
feel?
the players to come out and execute.
Definitely. And how did it feel at the ground to actually have that go down?
Yeah, no, it's been fantastic. You know, the girls really were up for the game today. We owed Newcastle one for when they came down to Ballarat. So, you know, it was a fantastic atmosphere. And in terms of the girls coming out and executing the game plan, they did exactly what we asked of them and put out a really fantastic performance across the 90 minutes.
Helen, congratulations on your first win as a head coach. As a former fellow female coach, it's very, very exciting to see someone like yourself be given the reins to take the job today. I've just got to say, though, once you do get back to Melbourne, you make sure that you give Mark Torcasco heaps for tearing his calf and not being able to make the game today. And he has to put at least $100 in the fine bucket, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
Helen, what does this result say about what you've built as an institution? Because no more Jess McDonald, no more Chloe Lagazzo, Amy Medwin tears her ACL last week, Mark Torcasco's not there on the sideline. Why is there such institutional strength that no matter what key pillars are missing, the results keep coming?
No, great question, Teo. I think the belief that this group has in each other and the desire that they have to win, it comes out in every game. You know, we can have games where it's maybe not going to plan like it has been, but the fact that they just want to go out, they want to work for each other, they've got such a connection and such a bond, it really, really shows when they come out. And for them to come out today and play the way they did for those 90 minutes, despite all the issues and everything. Sorry guys. Yeah, despite everything, you know, it's fantastic to see, and they're just an awesome group, and they just really want it. They want it so much, and they want to work with each other. It's fantastic.
I know you're probably self-conscious because your team are chanting at you there, but I'm going to make it even more difficult for you. What are your coaching ambitions? Because you've been in Australia for, 4 or 5 years now. You built a really good reputation for yourself in the NPL, and that getting that opportunity at A-League women's level seemed like a bit of an inevitability. But where do you want to go as a coach, say, in the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, I think for me, like I still want to learn. I still want to be in this environment and learn as much as I can. You know, working with this caliber of players and everything like that. And you know, head coaching job, I'd love to get there one day, but I still know I've got a lot to learn and a lot to figure out before I get there. So eventually, Teo, definitely would love to be there, but it's got to be the right time.
Helen, we were talking about opportunities for female coaches, and I suppose Kath Connolly herself having been a coach of Western Sydney Wanderers, and where that inspiration came from to make that step to being a coach. For you, where did the journey start for you to decide to go that route with football and to use your mind to instruct the players and to become a coach?
Well, originally I started out as a player, as many coaches do, and I think, you know, you get to that point when you realise you're probably not quite good enough. And I've always coached in the younger age groups as a player, and I think for me to stay involved in the game, I enjoy the coach and I enjoy the tactical side of things and working with the players. So I think, yeah, it was a natural progression from playing into coaching, and then just continue to build on that, and as a coach working, you know, as Teo said, in the NPL, progressing into the A-League. So yeah, I think playing to coaching and then just having to make that decision of, okay, I'm not going to play anymore, I'm going to step up and start this coaching journey.
Helen, the journey as a coach and especially a female coach is quite difficult and can be daunting at times. If there was one thing that you could see and you could change as a female coach, what would you say would be the ultimate pathway for somebody to take coming through like the NPL into the A-League?
I think it's just taking the opportunities. You know, you're always going to doubt yourself and you're always going to question if you are good enough and if you are going to be able to do the role. But I think you take the opportunity, and that's where you learn. You know, when you get out of your comfort zone, you just got to go for it. And I know obviously them opportunities don't always come, but being able to actually have the moments where you can go into those environments, you know, learn, see what goes on. And then, yeah, when you get that opportunity, you just have to take it. You have to trust that you're the person for the job and that you can do what you need to do.
And Helen, enough questions about you. I wanted to ask about Carly Johnson, because she had the highest XG and the highest number of shots of any player yet to score a goal this season. So the monkey's off the back. How happy are you for her? And what about the work that she's been putting in to not just score that first goal, but to score 2?
Yeah, no, Carly was fantastic today. I'm really, really, really pleased for her. You know, she just come out of the young Matildas camp where she's done really well. Obviously, she had to play against us on Monday, so that was a bit different for her. But now she's coming back into training this week, and yeah, today she was just on it, and I'm so pleased for her. She really deserved those 2 goals, and she had a fantastic game.
Helen, thank you so much for joining us. Congratulations on not only your debut, but the big win for you and the team. I hope you celebrate tonight.
Thank you, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us. Well, let's take it back to our Pride round.
Yeah, so it is still 1-0 after almost 14 minutes. You had the little in-picture box there while we were chatting, but 2 shots for victory, 1 on target, of course. I think if it's going down as an own goal, I'm not sure it was a shot on target. Adelaide just the 1 shot off target, so still in need of a response. But as we watch this game unfold, Catherine, very level-headed there, Helen Winterburn. I mean, so often, it's pushing for more, it's pushing for the next thing. It's I want it now, or even I want it yesterday, dare I suggest. But Catherine, to say I'm waiting for the right opportunity, it's got to be the right time. I think there's a real level head there with Helen Winterburn about picking the right opportunity to think about pushing to the next level. Because, like I said earlier, it's a televised league. You get unprecedented opportunity to get your name out there in this competition. And sometimes that can lead to the hype getting a little bit out of control as to what comes next.
It was really nice to hear from Helen. I personally don't know much about her, and sometimes as assistant coaches, again, if you haven't got a profile in the game and you haven't played in the Liberty A-League or, at a higher level, that you don't sort of get recognised. So today, to be able to get that opportunity to be the head coach and get her name out there, I think it's an amazing achievement for her, and you can see how humble she is. And for me, just from hearing the girls chanting in the background and the way that they were, so happy for her, just goes to show, what type of person she is, because we all know when the girls are rallying behind you, and especially as an assistant coach, you always play a different type of role to a head coach. And it's fantastic to see another female coach being able to, have these opportunities.
Is it the good cop, bad cop dynamic you're talking about with assistant coach versus head coach?
I think there is some of that, because as an assistant coach, maybe a lot of the girls might feel like they can come to you a little bit more. That was a little bit tough for me going as, 4 years as an assistant coach and then going into the head coach role where, sometimes that relationship that you have with the players, it's a little bit different. And, as a head coach, everything sort of starts and ends with you, and you're not sort of that sounding board anymore like you are as an assistant coach. So you do play a slightly different role, because at the end of the day, the head coach has to make the hard decisions.
That's right. It's just on them.
I wanted to ask you the same question. Oh, we see a chance here. Adelaide have scored. There's an equaliser. And it's game on at Amy Park. Yeah, Kat Haddad is absolutely shocked about the goal. And it is 1-1. Casey Dumont is spewing at her defence. And we're just waiting for the goal scorer here. Travelling Adelaide fans are absolutely loving it. Let's have a look at the replay. And
I love this.
It was a ball into the penalty area, cut through the right side of the box, the cutback. Don't tell me. Misha Westland has scored for the first time in the Liberty A-League, and it is 1-1. Mindy Barbieri gets the assist against her former team, and there it is. Magic Misha has scored the equaliser for Adelaide United, and maybe they will score 2 in a game for the first time in more than a year because they've got a foothold back in this game.
Maybe, and let's hope so for the Reds, because it has been a disappointing season for them, but you can just see the happiness on all their faces there, and especially Mindy Barbieri coming up against her former team, and it's game on here at Amy Park.
Game on. Don't you love it? Because I was thinking, we were all a bit worried if it was, Melbourne who were going to score first, and they did. But we love it. We've got a game. Equalised. Take it back to, back to the start.
Oh,
who's going to win it?
This is what we wanted, a contest. And Adelaide United coming to play. Now, back to the point we were making before that goal hit the net, though. I wanted to ask you the same question I asked Helen Winterburn. Every time a key piece of this Western United team departs, it doesn't rattle them. Jess McDonald goes back to America after her guest marquee contract ends. Chloe Lagazzo wasn't playing, but also she's left the club. She's still in Australia, but won't be coming back to Melbourne, won't be playing another game. We see their shot for Catherine Zimmerman, which goes over the bar. Then we've had Amy Medwin tear her ACL, was a key member of the starting 11, and now the coach isn't there on the sidelines. Catherine, what is it that they have done in order to just keep the boat on the water, no matter how many planks of the ship go missing?
Well, we always talk about, what makes a good house. A good house is made by a great foundation. And I think Western United, prior to coming into this competition, had laid the foundations and had a good core group there that then they just added pieces to that group. And I think that just goes to show, again, how strong they are as a group. And it's not just about the football, it's about the whole package and being able to have that mentality and have that togetherness to want to win and want to achieve things as a group. And I think Western United really show that on and off the pitch, and that's one of the reasons why they've been so successful. And I'm sure there was a lot of people out there thinking, once Chloe Lagazo left and Jess McDonald left, that the wheels would just fall off. But they've been finding ways to win, and it's fantastic to see them have such success in their inaugural season.
What really stuck with me that Helen mentioned was how much the girls want it. She just said they just wanted it. And it's really exciting because sometimes when you get, towards the top of the ladder, you can maybe get a little bit complacent or a bit shaken at times. But it's exciting to hear that they're hungry, and that really does lead to goals.
Of course, and you've got to understand as well that there's a lot of players in this Western United team that previously were only NPL players that probably didn't get an opportunity and never got a sort of and they didn't get like any sort of opportunity to go and play in an A-League women's team. So a lot of them probably got a point to prove as well, to show that, hey, look, we're NPL players, but look at what we're doing on this stage now. And I'm sure that togetherness also plays a part in all that success as well.
Kath, you said earlier that one of the most important parts of a team is the coach. And there's a comment here from Megan saying that this is the first she's seen of Helen Winterburn and that she hopes there's a long career of success for her because of the way that she carries herself, and I can't agree more. But we have seen within the football landscape this week and over the past couple of weeks that when there is issue between coaches and players, that can have a real impact on the teams, on national squads. For example, when we look at La Roja, the Spanish national team, and the issues that they've had and the boycotting that takes place because players don't agree with coaches, or coaches, there isn't a great dynamic within the team. And now we've seen it more recently this week with the French national team as well. It's an interesting period that we're heading into where obviously we're emerging as a stronger football squad, and the power that these players have is a lot more important within each of their national teams, for example. But do you think that this is an opportunity for things to change, or do you feel like the boycotting is setbacks to the progress that we would want to see within the game?
I think it's really sad to see, all these issues arising around the women's game. And as a fan, first and foremost, I don't want to see a Wendy Renard not come to Australia and play in the Women's World Cup. I don't want to see an Ada Hederberg not be playing, for her national team on the world stage, because as footballers, that's where you want to be. You want to be playing as many World Cups, and you want to be, setting records and representing your country, because, I've got to say I was one of the lucky ones that got to, put on that national jersey, probably not even as many times as I would like to have. But when you put on that jersey, it's something special. And, there must be some serious, issues around, what's going on for players like that to actually stand up and, look to the federation to say, we deserve better. And I think, in women's football, things are really, really great. I think where we've come from, years behind, but they can still be a lot better. And, from the outside, you probably look at a French national team and you think, oh, wow, look at them. They're all professionals, what an outfit. But, we don't really know what goes on behind the scenes. But in saying that, you also can't speculate, and you can't think that, the player's right or the coach is right. I always say there's three sides to a story. There's your side, my side, and the truth. So, it's disappointing because, we don't really see any of this in the men's game. So to see it in the female game, and, to see that the World Cup in Australia is going to be jeopardised from, having a lot of great talent not come to our country is actually disheartening.
Well, let's recap for anyone who wasn't across the news. So Wendy Renard, the best defender in the world, if not a slight argument that she's the best defender in the world, French legend, said that she won't be representing the French national team anymore, stepping away in protest. And then in solidarity, Kadiatu Diani and also Marie-Antoinette Katoto have both also said they won't be representing the French national team anymore. This follows Spain being here in Australia for the Cup of Nations without 15 players who have protested against the RFEF, the Spanish Federation, the conditions that the players have in the national team environment, and also the coaching approach of Jorge Vilda, the coach. The Spanish Federation called their bluff, called up replacements, and decided to leave basically the core of Barcelona, the best club team in the world, out of the French team. And then 2 weeks ago on Dubzone, we were discussing how the Canadian national team are on strike over pay, conditions, lack of equality and adequacy in funding. So 3 of the top teams in the world, 3 different languages, 2 different continents. It doesn't matter where in the world it's happening. Unfortunately, it is affecting the Olympic gold medalist, one of the World Cup favourites in Spain, and one of the permanent powerhouses of world football in France. I mean, Catherine, are we at the point where perhaps the top players in the world, regardless of what country they're from, will need to start a WhatsApp group or get on a group call and say we need to collectively protest? All the issues and all the nuances are different. The things that affect Spain are different to what affects Canada, to what affects France, right? But maybe the players need to come together and say, at the April international window, we need to collectively protest against the maladministration of women's football worldwide. These federations are going to ruin the spectacle of a World Cup if so many of the best players in the world are on strike.
It is disheartening to hear these stories, honestly, and to see federations like France and like Spain that, have such a great organisation, especially with their men's teams, are so successful, that there is a lack of, poor administration, and that these, players are feeling this way. It's actually, disappointing, because women's football has grown significantly over the years, and, we're very fortunate in the Matildas in the way that the girls get treated. They get flown around business class now. They get, treated like world-class professionals, in saying that, it probably can still be a lot better. There's still a lot of issues there in terms of, we want more and more, and, that's just the way it is. But, it's really sad. And we also know with the Jamaican national team, they had a similar issue as well. And their coach actually ended up stepping away, because he said, well, if the players don't want me, I don't want to, coach a team where the players don't respect me. And he sort of moved away. And they also had a new coach in the Cup of Nations as well.
So the other question I have, as we just see Victory scrambling to clear their lines here, we might just stay with play, because, Chelsea Dorber has a chance and has scored.
Oh,
and it's going to count. I think the flag's down. Adelaide have turned around a 1-0 deficit within the first half. And Melbourne Victory, they won't believe what's hit them here, because Adelaide United have a 2-1 lead, and Chelsea Dorber has broken her own scoring drought. You can see the relief as much as the joy. And it's Adelaide 2-1. They finally scored 2 in a game for the first time this season, for the first time in more than a year. Catherine Canuli, this was a proper goalmouth scramble.
It is, and you can just see the desperation, for Dorber in that box as well. They know what is on the line with this game, and, even though they've had such a poor season, they can really turn things around if they do get 3 points here and really push towards the end of this season. But, it's fantastic to see Dorber on the score sheet and that happiness in her face. But, I think even Adelaide would be shocked going in front at this point in the game as well. So let's see if they can hold on to it.
It was the hair pushback for me. It was like, yeah, it happened. That's good. Like, I love that. It's exciting. Like, you can tell they weren't even thinking it was happening, but that's good. Here we go. Talk about a game for Pride Cup.
What's Victory's response here, Catherine? I mean, we've looked at this match through the lens of Alex Chidiac is missing, but also through the lens of Adelaide United need to come from behind. Well, now the onus is back on Victory. They're the ones that need to respond.
Well, we know that, in a lot of games that, Chidiac really, held this team on her shoulders and really pushed through, and was the key difference between, a 3 points or a 1 point or no points at all. So it's going to be difficult for Melbourne Victory to come back from this. You could actually see in both those goals how angry Casey Dumont was as well, and how frustrated she was, because, Casey is an experienced, player. She's been around for a long, long time, and she knows how key these 3 points are for Melbourne Victory to stay in the pack for the top 4.
So here's another look and a bit of a debate there. You see Kayla Morrison, Amy Jackson, Claudia Bunge, they were all appealing for offside, but that angle is not going to tell us the story, so of course you trust the assistant referee. I said more than a year. I needed to consult the calendar. Guess the last time Adelaide scored more than 2 in a game? It was the 26th of February, 2022. What's today's date? It is the 26th of February, 2023.
No
hey, maybe it's today.
way.
Maybe that's the good luck charm.
Date. I love that stat. That's great.
There we go. I'm happy.
It's a good stat.
I love all of Teo's stats. They're always amazing. He's always spot on.
Oh, I mean, you didn't love him last year when I was talking about Wanderers breaking all the records for not scoring goals.
Look, I don't take it personal. Football's football, and I still love you, Teo.
You really had to say that, didn't you?
Yeah, I know. Just stab me in the heart a little bit more, Teo. It's all good.
Let's wind back around to that chat we were having about the teams coming to the World Cup. So I suggested, could players collectively come together and protest in the April window? Of course, Australia plays England in that window. It'd be a great stage. Australia's hosting the World Cup. England's one of the World Cup favourites. It'd get a heap of attention to say, hey, world federations, treat your players better, pay them better, be more serious about how you run the game. Is the alternative that these issues boil along, the players boycott, we have weakened teams come to the World Cup, but then the World Cup itself is potentially used as a stage to make that protest?
I think it's a really difficult situation. We don't want to be using the World Cup as a stage to protest. We really want to be using the World Cup as a celebration for women's football. I think, it's important, especially for us as a nation, that this is a spectacle that is going to be remembered for a very, very long time. And you could see a lot of even former players that have been involved with FIFA that have been going around and promoting the World Cup and how excited they are. And they're all saying that this World Cup is going to be one of the best ever World Cups that we've seen in the women's game. So we really don't want to see, players and teams in protest. I'm hoping that we can, either solve these issues prior to the World Cup, or if not, post-World Cup, look at, does FIFA Pro maybe need to get involved and start, looking at organisations and, forming a union that is, backing the players and, putting in some basic, things where players, this is what it takes. You want to run a women's national team, well, this is the bare minimum that you need to be giving the teams.
I mean, it's FIFA's tournament, and they're the ones who, I think, have a responsibility here to bring their federations up to code as well. They don't want their tournament diminished. We've had Ada Hegerberg strike in 2019 against the Norwegian Federation. Alexia Putellas is still rehabbing her ACL, but if the Ballon d'Or winner and the best player in the world skips the World Cup in protest for the second World Cup in a row, then the World Cup is flawed. There's something wrong that needs to be fixed. And I mean, I personally am so frustrated that Spain they won 2 out of their 3 games. They gave Australia a pretty good game in the end, coming back to only lose 3-2. But I watched the Women's Champions League. I watched the Barcelona Liga F highlights. I wanted to see the best players in the world. I wanted to see Aitana Bonmatí and Mappy Leon and Claudia Pina and these players that play dazzling, amazing football, and think about, I think, how much better the crowds would have been at all 3 venues if those names were coming out here, and also the marketability of the game in the World Cup if you're able to put them on the posters and they're here. It's just, I feel as though we all collectively were poorer for it, and it's because the Spanish Federation mishandled this situation so badly.
I think it's a real shame that we haven't seen a change yet. This Spanish news is not new news. This is one of the ongoing issues in women's football, yet even with them coming out here for the Cup of Nations, there was a lot of questioning around what that squad would look like and how they would handle these issues prior to that cup. But it's clear that it wasn't on the Spanish agenda this time around to fix that, which is a real shame. And Megan Borg writes here that it's disappointing that we won't get to see certain players on the world stage. And we all stand with them and we agree with obviously doing what is right for the greater good and the greater progression of the game in general. But it doesn't look like it's likely that this can change before the Women's World Cup.
It's going to be very unlikely to see a change, especially probably in the Spanish national team. But I think what happens with players and, the more and more you become a professional and the more and more you get sort of, the limelight around what's going on. And, the Spanish national team have been tipped to even win the World Cup with, if they've got their full team or full strength team there. And I think what happens is over time, possibly 10 years ago, we would have accepted that this was okay. But now around, the hype of women's football, how social media and the way everybody's, putting, the women's game on a pedestal and showing, oh my God, this game's amazing and look at what we're doing. But really in the background, what is really being done? how are these players being treated? What resources are they getting? How, is the federation supporting these players? And I think the players have gotten to a point where they're saying, hang on, you want us to be professional. You want us to, be X, Y, Z. How about you give us some appreciation? You start respecting, female footballers and start to, give us a little bit of equality on, the way you treat the men. We want to be treated in the same light as well. And I think they've just gotten to the point where they've just had enough of it.
And look, we're all just hoping that our World Cup for women's football can make headlines for the right reasons, for sensational football, not for this other stuff around it. So here's hoping it can be resolved. But we need to talk about who's actually going to be there. And Kat, you're the woman to ask because you were actually in New Zealand. Tell us all about that.
It was an unreal experience. I went to New Zealand for the entire week and I attended all of those last kind of key playoff games. So I got to see Portugal, Haiti and Panama qualify, which was unreal. I can't put into words what it's like to be pitch side watching players who have never, or teams who have never qualified for a Women's World Cup before or a World Cup before qualify. It was unreal. And I think, for example, you look at the Portuguese national team, Jessica Silva is the coolest girl I've ever seen in my life. And I was just there with a heart eye. I was a heart eye emoji that entire game watching her play. They are unreal. And being able to see that celebration pitch side, the fans who had come to Hamilton, which is 2 hours outside of Auckland, they trekked it to essentially a country town of sorts, which will be a stadium in use for the Women's World Cup. But to see them come for the playoffs and to get there, get around the team, to celebrate with them was just a beautiful experience. And similarly, the game between Haiti and Chile, the Chilean fans, I cannot speak highly enough of. They show up. It was midday on a Wednesday. Didn't mean anything. They took the time off work. They showed up. There was a sea of red in the stadium. And there was a small group of Haiti fans who I got to speak with when they qualified right at the end of the game. And it was actually a really emotional moment where this man was telling me this means so much, not for the women and not just for the men. It means so much for the country. And they've gone through a lot. The Haitian people in a very short period of time, and this offers them a piece of hope that they didn't have before, and they can fall back on that women's football team to feel a sense of hope that they didn't have before, to feel a sense of excitement around what's to come with the Women's World Cup, because these girls have made history for this country. And it was just a beautiful experience. And similarly, obviously seeing Panama qualify as well was unreal. So those were the last 3 spots for the Women's World Cup. They're all taken now. We know what the 32 teams are who have qualified for the Women's World Cup, and we know what that journey for the Matildas could potentially look like.
Haiti going to be playing England in Brisbane in the opening game. Regardless of how they go, I think they were a real breath of fresh air in this tournament. They have one superstar player, but I mean, how exciting for them that their 3 games are going to be England, Denmark, China, 3 powerhouses. They're going to be a total outsider in that group, and yet they might just have the ability to shock the world, even if it's scoring a goal. It would make, so much for the game in Haiti. But what was it like to see it with your own 2 eyes?
Oh, so we were in Auckland for that game. For context, we travelled between a few different stadiums for the playoffs. And like I said, there was only quite a small group of fans there to support Haiti, but it didn't take from the experience. If anything, it made it far more intimate when you went over and actually spoke to them about what that win means. And De Mornay, for example, unreal player. There's so much talent on that Haiti team, which obviously when you see them win, there's no denying that, but it wasn't an easy win for them. Chile put up a really great fight. We saw Cote Rojas score a goal. I know she spoke on the A-League's podcast about that experience, and it's so sad. I think we should put a petition out to get Chile to support the Matildas for the Women's World Cup, because there's no way we don't want those Chilean fans in stadiums. We want you to come to every game and bring that same energy that you brought.
We're green and gold and red.
Yeah. We're adding the red. But it was just such an unbelievable experience. As you can see, I can talk about it on and on and on and on.
But didn't you also have a mad dash between 2 games in 2 different cities on the same day?
I did.
Which I think, I'm not sure about the logistics of the World Cup, if it's going to be people going to one game and then jumping on a plane. on the same day, but certainly there's going to be a lot of people hopping between both countries and also going from city to city on massive tours as part of the World Cup.
I think what's good is most countries kind of stay within the same, or the nations stay within the same kind of area. So, for example, we had one playoff game between Chile and Haiti at 12 p.m. on Wednesday, and then we had a 7 p.m. kickoff for the Portugal-Cameroon game. So we had to drive 2 hours between a full time of the first fixture to make. We got there 5 minutes before kickoff. I actually did a vlog about this, but it was very fun. It was exciting. It was tiring. I got there, like I said, I was watching Jessica Silva play, and I think because it had been the entire day, and then I was pitch side watching her play, I didn't know where they got all of that energy from because I felt so drained by that point. They were just unreal.
And it's proof that there are 31 other teams coming to this World Cup, and there are so many players and stories that you're going to be able to fall in love with, aren't there?
Absolutely. And I feel like I learned a lot about players that I had never seen play or heard of before. And I think that's not an obstacle to enjoying women's football. I think that's the reality of women's football. That's where we are at right now, where we're still uncovering the stories yet to be told. We're still looking at these players and these national squads who we don't know about. And there's nothing wrong with that, because this is now their platform to tell their story and to show what they can do. And this is their opportunity to shine and to celebrate football. Like you said, Brianna, that's what this Women's World Cup should be about. It's celebrating the talent that comes to our shores over the July-August period. But it was a wonderful experience kind of seeing these players play for the first time and being pitch side for essentially historical moments for these squads.
We just saw a great run and cross from Beattie Goad, and here's the replay. No one able to get on the end of it for Melbourne Victory. Whipped into the area. Melina Reyes just behind the ball a little bit. Annalie Grove wasn't able to take it, but you see Goad left Paige Hayward behind there and just missed the chance of tapping that one in.
That was a great ball by Goad. The way she shaped that ball in behind that defender, Melina Ayres has got to do better there to put something onto it to be able to put that in the back of the net. But the technical ability to be able to do that from Goad, it just goes to show what type of footballer she is.
Here's Nat Tatham now sending it across, and good to see Annalie Grove has got the confidence back after bundling in the opening goal of the game. Adelaide now playing with a 2-1 lead, and we're getting closer to half-time here, but Melbourne Victory are definitely starting to turn up the heat in their pursuit of an equalising goal. So we see a giveaway of possession here, though. Emily Hodgson takes over for Adelaide, hitting that down the line. Looks like there's still quite a good crowd in at Amy Park as well. Of course, it's the second of a double header today with the men's game that was on first, and plenty of fans will have made their way in specifically for this match rather than going for the entire double header. But at the moment, it is Melbourne Victory doing what you'd have to say is a better job of chasing the game at the moment and getting closer and closer perhaps to an equaliser and another twist. And we did say earlier in the game that Perth and also Canberra would have been Adelaide fans for the day. Well, their support's being tested here because Beattie Goad is through on the left side, and Annalie Grove gets up to make the save and tips it over the bar. And so Beattie Goad very nearly scoring the equaliser.
It was great positioning there from Beattie Goad. She's kept her width there. She was waiting for that ball to get in behind. And I think at one stage there, she wasn't thinking whether, am I going to square this up or am I going to go to goal myself? And, you know, we know what type of left foot she's got. And, you know, just in that instant there, if she could have hit it low and hard along the ground, it would have been a little bit more success for her. Well,
good save by Grove, but Goad tried to go over the keeper rather than around. Very difficult when you got two defenders charging in to try and close you down. Keeper is not in position. And the ball, I think that's hit the crossbar as it is skimmed through the penalty area. Jenna McCormick getting it away, but not convincing keeping there from Annalie Grove. But the defence is able to bail them out. And Melbourne Victory, they will see only 3 minutes or 2.5 minutes of regulation to go until half-time. They will really want to grab an equaliser here while they've got the running of the game.
They have got a good run of the game now here. You know, we know coming into this game that they were probably the favourites coming into the game. In saying that, it's been sort of, you know, a couple of end-to-end chances for them, but unfortunately they're behind at the moment, so they have to chase. And it's going to be interesting to see if they do come out in the second half and they are still down by a goal, in what tactics Jeff Hopkins does take in the second half as well.
Well, also, how do Adelaide just put a foot on the ball and slow this down, Catherine? It's wave after wave of attack at the moment, and it looks as though they're not doing anything just to give their defence a breather here. Victory are just peppering that penalty area.
we talk a lot with our teams about managing games and what ways that we can actually manage, the games in these situations especially. And I think, to be honest, Adelaide have been quite poor in this situation because they have lost, several games in terms of not being able to manage the situations that they're in. And, knowing that there's only a couple of minutes left in this half, they really need to get the ball up the other field or be able to really slow things down to be able to get a little bit of momentum back.
There's Beattie Goad's stats so far this season. You can see 6 total shots, so just the 1 goal hasn't been prolific, but she has been a creator, Catherine. And, Victory are just hugging that left side as they end this first half here because they know they've got a matchup they like at the moment.
She has been, I think, overall in this competition, I think she's been really, really great. In saying that, I'd like to see her take more opportunities and actually have more shots at goal. I think she's actually probably too nice playing in that position. She always looks to cross the ball and likes to bring other people into the game. I think at times, her 1v1 ability is really, really good. Once you do beat that defender, why don't you take the ball across goal and get yourself into the box and have a hit, because you never know what's going to happen. You just need to back yourself, and I think she needs to find a little bit more confidence in that part of the pitch.
If Adelaide can score against the run here, it would be a huge bonus for them. They're attacking through the left side. Victory can't clear. The shot is turned around the post and out for a corner kick. Casey Dumont coming to Victory's rescue as we go into 2 additional minutes. Off goes the protective headband, and Victory have a corner to defend here. That was, again, exactly what can happen in a counter-attack situation. It was Emily Hodgson with the chance. Hasn't scored a goal since 2017, I believe, and just the one in her career, Emily Hodgson, and that was testing Casey Dumont down next to the post. So let's take a look at the resulting corner here. It's been thriller-minute stuff in this first half at the moment. Nanako Sasaki is going to take this corner kick. Adelaide have got a couple of tall options to aim for. It's going to tumble in at the near post, though, and Melbourne Victory are able to clear their lines. All going back out to Sasaki, the corner taker. He's going to whip it in on the right foot to the far post. The header is up and over the bar, and frustration there for Jenna McCormick, I should say. Not able to steer that one down onto the target, but just taking a look at some of the numbers, Catherine. Victory, 9 shots, 2 on target. Adelaide, 4 shots, 3 on target. So both teams are certainly creating plenty, but it is 2-1 to Adelaide.
Yeah, it has been a lot of different opportunities for both teams, and it's great to see. This obviously creates excitement as well for the game, so you don't want to have a boring game, so to see so many shots on target and getting opportunities at both ends is really nice to see. In saying that, this game's going to really come down to who's going to take those opportunities, who's going to put the ball in the back of the net, because at the end of the day, you only win games by scoring goals, not by shots on target.
Yeah, it's certainly not a boring one, is it? It's got it all going on at the present.
It's exactly what you want. Stephen Pauletti wrote to us saying, so Adelaide have the lead over Victory after hardly being able to score all season. I'm not saying that the numbers have magical powers, but the Tillies dominated last week with Pride numbers last week as well. Surely it can't be a coincidence. Is this a little magic of Pride Week?
It could be. It could be the magic of Pride. We could change the name, so whatever works, we'll just run with it.
I love it. There was also a question from Megan Borg here asking about those crowds in Auckland and Hamilton. Were they mostly supporting the teams playing, or were they neutral fans as well? Megan, to answer you here, it depended on the stadium. Hamilton is a much smaller town, so you have to drive a lot further to get there. So there were games where there were less fans in the stadium. However, when it was a Ferns home game against Argentina, there was a decent turnout to that, and there are a lot of neutral Kiwi fans. Can you be a neutral Kiwi fan against? No, you can't. But families showing up and a much larger crowd of people, more casual fans, I think is the word that I'm looking for there. And then similarly at the Chile game against Haiti, it was a sea of red. There are people who have purposefully come out to support their country, which I think is the energy that we will see at that Women's World Cup, that I do hope to see more neutral fans come for that Women's World Cup period, because it's such a fantastic opportunity to get around countries that you've never seen play before, and obviously to get around the Matildas as well. So we'll see what happens.
And sometimes if you're a neutral fan, it's really exciting because you just go back to just loving football. And sometimes that can be a really special experience because you don't have to vie for a certain team to win, and you just fall in love with the game all over again.
I really hope that we market to the different nationalities, especially in Australia. We've got such a massive range of different cultures that live in Australia. So I think it's going to be really fantastic to see, this World Cup come alive and people really buying into, different countries and really supporting, maybe their parents' home nation or maybe where they were born. And I think it's a beautiful thing, and that's why the World Game is so special. And you always say if you're part of the World Game, it's a piece of your heart around the world.
Oh, that is beautiful. And look, we are in halftime of what is the Pride Cup. There's been plenty of action happening all throughout the week to do with football, and Keep Up is the place to see it all. So let's see what's been making noise this week.
I'm really grateful for the opportunity to be in such an amazing country and really playing in that team. I'm sorry. It's hard because, again, it's Australia's my second home, and not be part of the World Cup. It's gonna be a really tough one. But yeah, no, look, just give me one day, and we'll be training tomorrow, and I will be back with Melbourne. I'm in a really good club, good hands, and I'm so grateful to have that support. And I was in Chile for the whole month in January for this camp. I put my heart, I bet, I took the risk, knowing that we could win, we could lose, and I don't regret it. I'm just grateful to have Melbourne City behind and have them supporting me. Thank you for that, to the club, to the coaches. My teammates have been amazing. If I can be in the World Cup playing, hopefully, I can, help anything. I will be here for sure. And yes, hopefully we can win with Melbourne City. I'm looking forward for that. I'm moving on, and yeah, I can't wait to rejoin them.
What a finish! Courtney Vine! Let's talk about Liberty A-League stars. Courtney Vine. Grace, what a goal.
Amazing. It was an unbelievable.
That's probably the best I've seen her to score, to be fair.
No, it was an unbelievable finish from Courtney Vine.
It's really fantastic to see her performing and really giving it her all in the green and gold, and playing in the A-League, and choosing to stay here and to be able to still be able to step up and be able to do that on the world stage has been fantastic for her.
I guess it really speaks to the strength of our league and also, the strength of Australian football. She seems like she's part of the furniture for Tony Gustafsson at the moment, Grace.
Yeah, look, I think she's doing more than enough to make it easy for Tony Gustafsson. She's undroppable in my mind at the moment with those kind of performances. I think any coach would be mad not to have her in their side, and let alone that, but they're starting 11.
I remember it so clearly, sitting on the couch in the front living room of my parents' house and basically walking out feeling like I would never actually walk back into the house again. And yeah, it was a pretty low time in my life, and obviously it was something that I started to question myself on can I change this about me? Can I, is there a way that I can be the person that my family want me to be? But then my instant knowing and response within myself was, no, I can't change this, and this is who I am. I'm Emma Checker, and this is my story.
Awful words there from Emma Checker. Of course, she is the Melbourne City captain and also a Matilda as well. And we're pleased to say she joins us now. Emma, thank you so much for joining us. I'm Brianna, and just tell us a little bit about how Pride Round has unfolded so far for you.
Well, firstly, hi guys. Thanks for having me. It's just been super special, to be honest. And I think it's been a long time coming, and I've always hoped that we would reach a place in the league where this is something that we're celebrating. And I think you can see how it's impacting those beyond just those of us on the field. So I think it's a really big time for the league, and we're taking steps in the right direction.
Emma, it's Knowles here. I've known you for a very, very long time, and I never knew this story about you. And when I watched this video the other day on my computer, it brought a tear to my eye. And, I just wanted to go through the computer screen and put my arms around you and give you a massive hug, because you've been, a great young footballer. I've seen you progress as a footballer and as a person. You've grown so much. But how beautiful is it that our sport is embracing Pride Round, and that someone like yourself is able to tell your story and actually be able to look to you and have that, confidence to be able to want to either come out or be able to tell their story?
Yeah, thanks, Knowles. It's massive. And I think, to be honest, if it weren't for our league, taking a stance and celebrating around like this, I may not have come out and told my story in this way, to be honest. And I think it's funny because you can feel so comfortable and okay within yourself and with your story. But when you when you get vulnerable and share it in a public way, it can feel very different. And I think it's a credit to the league that they've, taken initiative in doing this, because it has allowed, I know for people like myself, the chance to step up as well and play a bigger role in helping others now as well.
Emma, one thing that Kath said earlier on the podcast on the show was that if you can't see it, you can't be it. You can't be it if you can't see it. That idea, I think it's really beautiful, and I keep struggling to say it. But I guess the idea there is around diversity and inclusivity and how important sport is in being able to be a representation of everyone, not just certain types of people. How do you feel that role is for Liberty A-Leagues and the way that what they do really shapes community inside and outside of sport as well?
Yeah, I think we're in a really special position, to be honest. And I think we have responsibility to do our part in a lot of areas in the broader community, and this being one of them. And I think the great thing about our league is I feel like we've been a leader in this element, and we have often paved the way, even if it's just internal and not so public, in the way that we are inclusive. And I think now that is on more of a public display, it's really great, and it does give the opportunity for the public to engage within that and see just how special sport is. And I think it's, like I said, it's our responsibility to use our platform and generate change. And whether it's in this space or something close to others, we've all got something, and I think that we have to use our platform to do bigger things in the world beyond just being on the field.
Absolutely. And just more personally, I think thank you for sharing your story, because I know that it's not easy to be so vulnerable on such a public forum. But as Kath said, your story reaches a lot of people, and it is inspiration to a lot of people to accept who they are and to move forward and carry on with whatever it is that they want to do in life, and not feel like anything should stop them from doing that. And we've seen in other codes around Australia that sometimes that doesn't go as well as it has with Pride Round in the A-League. So it's a real testament to how far football is moving in Australia and the progress of football here. So it's more so a comment just to say thank you for what you've done and the story that you've shared, because it's truly very inspirational.
Thank you. That means a lot to me.
Emma, before we get into questions about Melbourne City, I just wanted to ask you, this initiative, the APL has been pretty honest saying this is step one of a lot of steps. It's going to be a multi-year, long-term initiative to make change. So in terms of benchmarking it, is there anything that you've seen elsewhere in the world of sport, or anything that you think is kind of on the to-do list for initiatives like this into the future?
I think it's funny, I answered a similar question yesterday, and I think the biggest thing for me is, one, we have taken a step in the right direction, and I think it is, touching on what you said, it's not just a once-off. We can't just do it once and then think that we've done our part. So I think for me, in seeing what I've seen overseas, the biggest thing is about the long-term commitment and the education around it. And I think the education that we were fortunate enough to receive as players was really eye-opening and important. And I think to, continue to generate that education to the broader community is really important. And I think that from what I've experienced overseas, a lot of leagues are now taking similar steps. So it is becoming a little bit of a benchmark. I do believe that we are trying to stay ahead of the game, but we have to commit to this. It can't just be a once-off. And thankfully, it does seem like that is something in the high priorities of the league.
So let's talk about Melbourne City, because your team is cursed with injury at the moment. Melissa Barbieri, Naomi Chinema, Carly Rossbacken is struggling. Do you have any updates for us on potential return dates for those three key pillars of your team?
It's hard to say with dates. We don't actually have them yet, but I think the positive thing is that they're all coming around pretty well. And I think the progress we've seen in the last couple of weeks, especially with obviously the FIFA break and then having the bye, it's actually been a really important time for us to regroup. And we were disappointed after the loss to Western. So obviously with the injuries and the disappointment around that game, I think we've, made the most of the time that we've had to regroup, and it's given those girls a chance to focus on their rehab without feeling like they're missing out on game time so much. So I do think it's worked in our favour that we've had this time.
City's best this season has, I think, been the best we've seen of any team. But as we saw in the game against Sydney FC, it's not happening for you at the moment. What have the coaching staff, but also you as a team leader, discussed in this international break, plus the bye, so you've got an extra week off, to try and recuperate and regroup here, maybe reload and go for top spot, but also try to achieve that long-term goal of the championship? Because the form line has been dipping in the wrong direction for Melbourne City. What are you doing to change that situation?
Yeah, look, I mean, the Sydney game was disappointing and we can't deny that. But I think the positive thing was that even though we didn't get the points we wanted against Western, we felt like for the majority of the game we did come out to play and we did play well. And I think the first half more so, and obviously Western did fight back in the second half, but we have had promising signs still since that Sydney game, and we're not, it's not all doom and gloom for us as much as those have been hard results. And I think for us, it's just being really committed to the structures that we're playing. And obviously we do play a pretty unique style of play, and it can take time. And we've made slight changes and tried to tweak little things here and there. But I think the positive thing is, again, with having these 2 weeks, we've really been able to fine tune, and we feel really confident coming back out into the game next weekend.
And I know that Cote Rojas is back soon, now that Chile's World Cup qualifying campaign is over. But I feel as though you talk about a commitment to a style and you have a unique style, and I agree with you 100%. And I actually love that City play possession football. They want the ball. They want to be proactive with the ball. But at times have you felt as though it's incompatible, particularly with your centre-backs, with your goalkeepers, with changing keeper, and that being able to bed down a possession style of passing out from the back has been the biggest issue for City so far this season?
Oh, look, I mean, it's hard. You try not to blame something in particular, but I think the reality is we have had various changes in personnel, and whether that be, through injury or international commitments, there has been a lot of change. But I do think we're stabilising the group, and obviously we've got a couple returning from injury soon, and we've got some out for a little longer. But Cote coming back and the New Zealand girls being back this week, it'll probably be the biggest group we've had on the training park for quite some time. So I do think we're still positioned well, and I think we can stabilise the group now that we do have everyone back.
Well, I appreciate you letting me grill you there, Emma, and well done. You've answered all of those questions really well.
You got to trust Teo to put the heat on. But look, Emma, thank you so much for joining us and also for sharing your journey during this Pride round. It means a lot to everyone.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
That's Emma Checker, and amazing to chat to her. Obviously, such an important round for so many, and it's exciting that we can be here to support and celebrate.
It is, for me, it's really touching to see Emma, now being such a grown-up in this league, and I've seen her progression.
How young was she when you first?
I think I might have seen her at 15.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah,
so this is
16,
momentous.
yeah,
This is
it is.
Whole journey.
And like I said, I've known her for a long period of time, and I never knew this story about her. And I hope more athletes feel, comfortable enough to be able to share their story and be, because Emma, back when she was a lot younger, she was always a very quiet person as well. So be able to see someone like herself be able to share that journey, and to have a league that is so inclusive. And I think, we've got to give credit to the APL, the way that they have rolled out this initiative. I think it's been fantastic and it's been handled in a really great way.
I think, as she said, the football has such a responsibility and an opportunity to tell stories, to promote diversity, inclusivity, to share stories like hers that they're not a rarity. It's an experience that a lot of people have, but we need to just normalize sharing those stories and people feeling, like you said, just comfortable to be who they are and to share their own story.
For sure. And even, we've got to touch on the Josh Cavallo story as well, what courage he had to come out as a male and to, share his story with the world. And, ever since he's come out as well, we've seen, a bit of momentum behind that as well, which is just fantastic to see. And, that these, whether you're male or female, that you feel comfortable enough to be able to, be who you are within your own skin.
That's exactly right. And look, we are in the halftime break of the Pride Cup. So, Teo, can we talk about the highlights we've seen so far?
Yeah, let's get into the goals before we jump back into the second half action. So it was Melbourne Victory that took the lead. Melina Reyes getting the better of Jenna McCormick here, and it was bundled in for what at the moment is Melina Reyes' goal. That made it 1-0, but Adelaide turning things around quite sharply after that. So Victory got the early goal in a bit of a fluky situation and what would have to be considered a goalkeeping error as well by Annalie Grove. But after that, as we see the celebration there, Adelaide got the equaliser. Now look at this touch here inside the penalty area. That pass there was absolute genius out to Mindy Barbieri. It's Emily Hodgson who put Isabel Hodgson, I should say, who flicked that ball out to Mindy Barbieri, who squared it for Misha Westland to score her first Liberty A-League goal for the 21-year-old. And then it was this passage of play, a real penalty area scrap falling to Chelsea Dorber, and Dorber, who had been waiting for some time now to net another goal. She is up to 4 for the season, and that is what makes it 2-1, Catherine Cannulli at the moment.
Really great to see for Adelaide that they've taken the lead in this game. You know, they've had an unfortunate run of results in this competition, so to see them be ahead at this halftime break is great to see, but it's going to be interesting to see what the next 45 minutes we've got in this game.
And we just saw Misha Westland there. Now, this is a player who I think has had a bit of a fascinating journey because it's a Brisbane Roar train-on who never got a game for Brisbane Roar, moved to Melbourne to play for Melbourne City, moved to Sydney to play for Manly United in the NPL, and has now moved to Adelaide. This goes to show, Catherine, that I mean, we've talked about this in the past. If you're in the one-team town and the one team in town doesn't want you, it's not like Melbourne or Sydney, where if you don't make it at Sydney FC, you can try Wanderers. If you don't make it at Wanderers, you can try Newcastle. As of next season, you'll be able to try Central Coast, or you can go down the road to Canberra. This is Grace Wilson here, the backup goalkeeper for Adelaide, who's really getting into the spirit of Pride round with that hairstyle, I should say. But again, if you're from Adelaide or if you're from Brisbane, you have to move into state. You don't have a choice. If the one team or the one coach in town doesn't want you, you don't really have an option. And Misha Westland is kind of the blueprint of the persistence that it takes. If you're not a Matilda, but you're a fringe player in the A-League Women's, of what you might have to do in order to get a game in this league.
Credit to Misha Westland, you know, because it's tough. It's not easy, because the easy thing to do is to say, oh, no, they don't want me, I'm just going to give it away, or I'm just going to keep playing NPL. And what a lot of people don't realise is that there's a massive financial cost on these players as well to have to move into state, because most of the time they probably aren't playing for their accommodation, and it's really, really difficult. And, you know, if they're on a minimum contract, which you're looking at about, you know, $18,000 at this point in time, by the time you pack yourself up and move into state and find yourself some accommodation, that $18,000 realistically doesn't get you far, and especially if someone's moving to Sydney to play in the A-League Women's as well. So it's a credit to her, because we all know, as any athletes, you need to build resilience if you want to make it to the top. The road to success isn't always easy for some people. Some people have got it harder than others, and that's why, you know, we always talk about talent can only take you so far. And, you know, people like Misha that have, you know, really stuck it out and really, you know, gone above and beyond to be able to get to this point. It's fantastic to see her get rewarded.
Did you have teammates like that? Because, I mean, I must admit, in the early years of covering the old W League, it was one team per town until Western Sydney Wanderers came in, and then Melbourne City came in, and the dynamics all changed. But Melbourne Victory used to basically be where players that couldn't get a game at the Brisbane Roar would come. And we're talking Matildas, we're talking Laura Alloway, now Laura Brock, we're talking Rebecca Stott, who's now gone on to play for New Zealand, we're talking Katrina Gorry. And Gorry played for the Matildas before she ever played for the Brisbane Roar, because she had to go to Victory, she went to Adelaide, she went back to Victory for another year, and then she got a game for the Matildas. Tom Samani called her up, and then Brisbane said, oh, actually, yeah, Minnie, now you can play for your hometown team. So, like, I think it's amazing. You would have had teammates, surely, that were in a similar situation, never mind you yourself also moving interstate.
Of course, you know, I was one of those people that, you know, moved from Sydney FC, and when I took that break from football and came back and was playing at Sydney FC, I had to sort of buy my time, and I was coming off the bench, and by that time I had the love and the spark for football again. And, you know, when you're warming up, you know, a stage special would make you warm up for about 40 minutes on the sideline and only give you 3 or 4 minutes. You know, you want to just wring his neck before getting on that pitch, and I had the hunger for it again, and I decided to move interstate. I was lucky enough that I had family that lived in Brisbane at the time, and if I did not have family that lived in Brisbane, there's no way that it would have been affordable for me to be able to make that move interstate. You know, I've seen it as a player. People come to Sydney and try, you know, especially at Western Sydney, to try and, you know, get a spot. I've seen it as a coach, players paying their own way to come for trials, and it's heartbreaking to see that, you know, these players are still having to fork out, you know, so much money to still try and play this game at where we're at right now. But it just goes to show, you know, look at Misha Westland where she is now, and there's many other stories in our league as well. They're in the same boat as well.
And because they're not players that are like on that Matildas trajectory, they're maybe on a trajectory to be long-term A-League women's players, those make or break stories. They do get lost. Like, I think of someone like, to use an example, Caitlin Douglas, who's from Perth, played for Perth for 5 or 6 years, did her ACL, has missed the last 2 seasons. She's moved to Sydney to play for the Northern Tigers in the NPL because, again, there's one team in Perth, there's going to be multiple teams in New South Wales with the Central Coast Mariners coming in. But these are massive life decisions that fringe players for the A-League Women's have to make if they want to keep living the dream and want to get back to that next level of competition. And again, if you've got the talent to become a Matilda, or you've got, you know, sort of the belief that you'll become a professional overseas in Europe and make football your full-time job, you know, you might have the willingness to go and gamble and set your stall out. But, Catherine, often the pro-athlete mindset means that people that you wouldn't think are on the Matildas trajectory, in their heart of hearts and in their minds, they genuinely believe they're going to make it, and that is why they commit and they make the sacrifices in order to take those risks.
Of course, you know, to be a professional athlete and to make it to the top, you need to have that self-drive. And sometimes it doesn't come easy for all of us. You know, some people's journeys are different to others. Some people get things handed to them on a silver platter. Some, you know, have got to go around Australia to find a team to be able to put themselves on that stage. And, you know, another one is Rihanna Policina that plays for Melbourne City now.
Equaliser, Catherine Zimmerman.
Wow.
And no, it's offside. You can tell it's offside from the reaction. You don't see too many goals get celebrated with a massive F-bomb. And so it means that it is Daniel Anderson, one of the best in the business. And we'll have a quick look here at the replay because Melbourne Victory have had an equaliser chalked off. All right, Catherine, talk us through it.
Just offside there, but she'd be disappointed that she didn't hold her line there. She had plenty of time to be able to stay in line with that defender and be able to be onside. I think she just got ahead of it and unfortunately got caught offside.
So Melbourne Victory certainly finishing, starting the second half, how they finished the first half, which is on top and chasing an equaliser here. This is Jessica Nash, the Young Player of the Month nominee, we should mention, in the Liberty A-League, getting forward and having that cross blocked away. I just wanted to run you through Adelaide's remaining fixtures. If this result holds, they would be on 16 points. Melbourne Victory would be on 22. Adelaide can get to a maximum of 31, which would still be potentially enough to get into the finals with favourable results elsewhere. Their run home is away to Canberra, Newcastle at home, Perth at home, away to Sydney, Wellington at home. So they've still got some of the top teams, but crucially, Catherine, they also have both Canberra and Perth in that run home that are two of the teams that they'll be battling along with Victory to get into fourth spot.
I'll say it over and over again. This season has been one of the most exciting ends to a season that I've seen in my whole time in the Liberty A-League. And to see how results can really change the way the ladder's going to turn. Every week it's going to be, everybody's going to be on the edge of their seats, and it can really take a turn here, especially if Melbourne Victory do lose the 3 points today and Adelaide gain them.
Do you think, though, having just, even though it didn't count, getting that momentum of thinking you had an equaliser, sometimes that's the shift teams need mentally to just kick them into that momentum of continuing scoring?
Of course, you know, like momentum plays a massive part in the game, and especially in football, when you feel like that you're on top of teams, you get that confidence and you want to keep peppering them. And I think that's the time where, you know, the more experienced players to the younger players can actually recognise those moments. We talk about football and we talk about different moments in the game, and that's a moment when you have momentum and you are on top of an opponent, that what can you do to be able to, you know, we talk about sticking the nail in the coffin and be able to, you know, really keep going at them. And now Melbourne Victory have really going to take that in their stride now.
Adelaide attacking here, but Kayla Morrison clears away. And again, Adelaide to try and hit victory on the counter-attack. I'll give you some stats after this phase in play here, as we see a diving header from Morrison, and not the greatest touch means that the ball is cleared away. So at the moment, in the second half, possession is more or less 50-50. For the full game, 52-48. So Melbourne Victory just shading it at the moment. 11 total shots, only the 2 on target. Adelaide 5 shots, 3 on target, of course. 2 of those are goals. And as far as turning to the bench, neither team has made a sub just yet. We saw a cutaway to Fiona Wirtz still sitting among the subs, and Mariska Waldis is the only player with a yellow card so far.
And that's not surprising for Mariska Waldis. I coached her at Western Sydney Wanderers as an assistant coach when she first came to Australia, and she's been fantastic for our league, and she's a real true leader as well. She's best friends with Vivian Miedema, and she had her in Adelaide, so who knows, we might actually see Miedema in the Liberty A-League one day once she sort of, takes a little bit of a step back from the highlights of the Arsenal football team.
That is exciting.
That is the prospect of that is very exciting.
And Miedema went for that sneaky visit to Adelaide, but then sadly tore her ACL, so we won't see her at the World Cup.
It's super sad.
We'll see her at the World Cup as a fan, I imagine,
surely,
rather than a player.
Look, I don't know whether she'll come out as a fan or not, but I do know that they do have sites to play in Australia. I've always kept in touch with Mariska, and we've remained really good friends ever since coaching her at the Wanderers. And again, she's a great person and a great footballer, and if we can have the likes of Miedema's to want to play their football in Australia at some point in their life, it'll be greatly welcomed.
I think it's the kind of marquee signing that would make such a difference to the game here in terms of promoting the game and getting the Australian game on the map around the world. But my question to you, Kath, is around the absence of Chidiac, and how do you think that's, I suppose, impacting today's game?
Look, I think Chidiac, is majority of the time for the Melbourne Victory, and especially in this season, has been the key difference to, changing that energy and taking the momentum and, taking the game in her stride. When she gets the ball, you know that she's going to do something creative, she's going to do something exciting. And I think, she's a massive key player to this team. In saying that, I've got to give it to Melbourne Victory. They've done really well today without her. It's just lacking that little bit of a spark. And credit to KK as well. I think she's having probably one of her better games for Melbourne Victory today as well. She's been really excited every time she jumps on the ball. I've seen it take a couple of shots there as well, and it's great to see her starting to find some form as well.
Well, you say that. I've got some numbers here just at the end of this passage of play as Victory yield possession here. So Elise Kellon-Knight, 23 passes completed today at 74% accuracy, including 15 passes in the final third. So she's spending a lot of time more advanced up the pitch compared to where we've seen her in the past. Amy Jackson in that more defensive role, 22 completed passes at only 68%. Alana Murphy, who came into the team for Alex Chidiac today, 19 completed passes at 70%, but also 13 in the front third. As we just stay with play here, because Adelaide are breaking through the left side. The cut across is Westland shuffling it over to Dorber, who's been caught in possession, but Mindy Barbieri is there for the second ball, and it tumbles into the gloves of Casey Dumont. But here's the key stat. Beattie Goad, we said that they were favouring the left side. 19 completed passes at 86% accuracy, including 10 in the final third, but she's had 48 touches of the ball. And you compare that to the right side of the pitch, where the numbers are nowhere near as high. 48 to Catherine Zimmerman on the opposite side, only 25 touches of the ball. So almost double the number of times Melbourne Victory are hitting up their left-sided attacking player rather than Zimmerman over on the right side of the pitch.
That could also be a tactic that the coaches put in place prior to this game as well. They could be looking at targeting that side as well, just to, they might have found some sort of weakness, or they're looking at getting Beattie Goad on the ball. They know what type of delivery she can put into the box. So, sometimes going into games, coaches will put certain instructions on where they want to sort of target certain players or certain sides, and take that as a tactic moving into each and every game. They'll have something different that they sort of focus on.
I want to shout out to Michelle Morris, who I actually hung out with at the Chile-Haiti qualification game, because she flew all the way to New Zealand for it. She's Chilean-Australian. Very impressive. That's some real commitment to your other team. She's asked us I think a really important question around attendance to games. So she said, hello Dub Zone panelists. I've noticed in the past few away games I've been to, there's been a lack of away supporters. How do we encourage fans to travel and attend more games for the Dub?
I don't think that's true. Sydney's last away game that Michelle Morris went to was Canberra. They tend to get the best crowds. Okay, so Western United away, fair enough. I know Michelle went to that one, but boosting crowds is a tough one. You have fans that want the double headers because it is easier to take the family to, commit to a day out. You have fans that want the boutique venues. The problem is in some cities, particularly Melbourne, you don't have boutique venues or appropriately sized venues that are available over summer or are near public transport. Often they're in outer suburbs. You know, you look at Melbourne City, they play in Casey, which is way out in the far southeastern suburbs. Melbourne Victory have often played at Epping, which is in the far northern suburbs, no tram line, not close to the train station. It's about a 4-kilometre walk. So that automatically makes it prohibitive to young people, but also fans that don't have cars. And I think the biggest issue, I think in particular, because Melbourne's the city I know, Melbourne Victory have occasionally landed on venues that were perfect, but you know, they found, Veneto Club in Bulleen, inner eastern suburbs, but they replaced it with a synthetic, and 2 players did their knee on that venue in the same game. And so they didn't want to go back unless it was basically extreme circumstance of venue availability. Similarly, they found Wembley Park in Box Hill, again, inner east, hotbed of football, huge number of registered junior girls players in that part of Melbourne. But the pitch got grass disease. It gets used all winter. They have to relay it every summer. And if the pitch isn't there and not available, it affects the best teams. I mean, look at Sydney FC. The reason that they've played 1 game fewer and have this game in hand lingering in the competition is because they literally couldn't find a venue in all of Sydney to play that Perth home game. And sometimes what the fans want versus what the clubs can find is a tug of war. And it's an unfortunate one, because I feel as though if the clubs can, if you find a home venue that's a grass pitch, not a synthetic, is appropriate size, it does need to be part of double headers, but it's also easily accessible, that's the golden ticket, and that's the one you latch onto if you can find it.
But how do we get more away supporters to these
Well,
games?
one thing I can add is we've got to remember that the Liberty A-League pass is for any stadium, any team. So you can get kids under the age of 16 in for free if they're registered. So that's good at least. That means you can travel.
It's an awesome initiative, and it's something that when I was growing up, I would have loved to have that. I think it's accessibility, and it's making it easy to attend.
We've got the equaliser here. No, again disallowed.
What?
Well, the offside flag is proving to be Catherine Zimmerman's mortal enemy here today. And so we'll have another close look at this one. I think Victory, the celebrations weren't quite as extensive as the first time, so they may have had a sneaking suspicion that they were offside on this occasion. But certainly Adelaide are rickety here, and so it means that they really are struggling as far as being able to hold on to this 2-1 lead. We're going to have to wait for a replay for a little bit, because the ball is live in play. Adelaide going on the counter-attack, trying to build a 2-goal buffer, which would be quite something, but the ball slides underneath there. You would have had days like this, Catherine, where every time you put the ball in the net, you were offside?
I've had many days like this. I can see the frustration on Zimmerman's face. Sometimes what happens, you just sort of get ahead of yourself, and you don't realise you're sort of a little bit ahead of what's going on within the play, and you just got that hunger to want to score a goal, and you want to put it in the back of the net, and you don't realise that you've overrun or overstepped the play, and unfortunate here that she's just caught herself offside. And I think Adelaide are very lucky to get away with that one as well.
Oh, no, that one to me looks a bit more offside than the first one, I reckon.
Well, the angle from here is quite bad, but in saying that, still the frustration in Zimmerman is not a happy camp right there, right now. And
surely,
as a striker, I think it's important that she gets those two out of her head and really concentrates on making sure that the next one sticks.
Yeah, that's what I think. Surely she's going to have a bit of a bugbear now, and she's just going to want to get one in the right way,
And so, as we see Victory clear the ball away, here's another look at a different chance that Melbourne Victory also had earlier. It was Jessica Nash making progress on the right side, and Elise Kellon-Knight looking for a return goal. And that one rattled back off the crossbar as well. So they are getting really close.
They are. They've got, obviously, the momentum in this game, and they're dominating Adelaide United at the moment. And it's unfortunate for Adelaide because they did come away with this lead after half-time. But in saying that, we've seen this time and time again in their season that they get to this point in the game and they don't know how to hold on to their lead, and they have, caved in the end. And you can just see just on some of their faces as well, and the way that they're playing and the way they're trying to play out from the back, that there's that hesitant feeling behind them. And Melbourne Victory are really pinpointing the times when to press and be able to pick up that ball and be able to counter them and get them on the back foot.
Really clever from Dylan Holmes there to lose the attention of Leah Privatelli, who's come on as a sub, now lifting in a cross, and it's headed away out of the penalty area. So the game remains end-to-end at the moment. Victory are creating more chances, but Adelaide's certainly not pinned in their defensive half here, and Victory will have to be careful. You suspect that this might be a good situation, Catherine, for Amelia Murray to come off the bench, because that's what Adelaide used her as all of last year, sort of as the player that's there to stretch the field in a counter-attack situation. She's had a few more starts this season, but has dropped back to the bench this time for this game today. So if they were going to sub on a striker, I don't think they'd sub on Fiona Wetts. I think they'd sub on Amelia Murray in this situation.
I think Amelia Murray really deserves the opportunity to be put on today. I think she's had a fantastic...
She might be in Adrian Stetter's finishing 11, you might say.
Exactly. She might be his game changer that Tony G calls them. The game changers, the finishing 11.
That's not an endorsement, but that's me being derisive about the concept. Just to clarify for anyone who's clipping this or taking a transcript, I am not endorsing the finishing 11 concept.
100%. You don't know how games are going to pan out. There's different moments in how the game's going to finish, and you can't realistically have a finish in 11 because you may need to call on different finish in 11s. You don't know who you're going to sort of turn to. In saying that, it'll be nice to see Amelia Murray take the pitch today and give a little bit of spark to Adelaide. I think they need to make some changes now and really look at how they're going to finish off this last 20 minutes of this game and what they're going to do to be able to hold on to these 3 points.
Victory made the one change, which was Leah Privatelli coming on for Alana Murphy. So we did mention that Elise Keller-Knight had been in a far more advanced role today and had been pushing forward and playing a lot more passes in the attacking third. So you imagine that might push Keller-Knight even further forward because Privatelli is traditionally a winger and she will no doubt be playing on the right side of attack. So Jeff Hopkins, he doesn't take your Matildas role into consideration when he puts you out there to play for Melbourne Victory. If he thinks he can get the 3 points with you playing a certain role, you play there, and it doesn't matter if it's not the one that you normally play for the national team, as we see Marushka Walters there with a textbook slide tackle on Leah Privatelli to win the ball away, and now Adelaide are trying to switch flanks over into the right side, and they will almost successfully pull this off. Yep, the ball... Nope, I've been fooled by the dark versus dark kits there. Catherine, that's a textbook slide tackle.
She is one of the toughest defenders. I remember as an assistant coach, playing a 5v5 match and, seeing what she can bring to the table. Like, she's played in competitions all around the world, in some, really, really tough competitions. And, when you're coming up against a 50-50 with Marushka, most of the times you're going to come off second best.
So there's a comment here about the Western United game, which was unreal. So our show started halfway through that fixture, and boy, what a scoreline. Let's talk a little bit about Carly Johnson and that game, but I think what's even better is we're about to talk to Mark Torcasco, so we can also get his 2 cents on that game because he was watching it like we were.
That's right. So Mark Torcasco, head coach of Western United, is joining us now. Mark, thank you so much for coming on. It's Brianna here, and I just want to say how proud of you of your girls taking out that 6-0 win.
Oh, definitely proud. Proud of all the staff, to be honest, the way they conducted themselves throughout the week. They were excellent. It was a well executed game in the end. So very, very proud, to be honest.
Mark, it's Catherine Cannuli here. Commiserations on the calf tear, mate. You've really hit the old age injuries. Let me tell you, it's not a fun injury. In saying that, just congratulations, on the win today. I know you weren't there, and I know as a coach it can be very stressful. I missed out a game last year due to COVID as well, and sitting from home and watching can be quite daunting as well. Do you feel that you've prepared the team and the staff in a way that you felt comfortable enough to be at home this afternoon and put the hands, put the pressure in the hands of Helen?
Yeah, definitely. I actually said to Helen straight after the game, we could do this more often. I could maybe coach from afar. But no, definitely have 100% confidence in every one of our staff members. And I mean, every coach is normally probably nervous before games, so not any different to the normal nerves, but 100% confident in Helen and the staff, but more importantly in the playing group to get the job done. So as long as we get everything right during the week, then normally the games execute the way we want. But definitely 100% acknowledgement needs to go to Helen and the staff and the players for today.
Mark, we are going to have to break here for a goal because Melbourne Victory have got their equaliser, and it has been a spectacular one at that. It's 2-2 at Amy Park, and it means that Melbourne Victory have finally got a reward for their comeback in this game. They'd been absolutely peppering the Adelaide United goals, and it looks as though Catherine Zimmerman might have finally overcome the offside flag, and there's one easy way to do that. It is to score from this sort of distance. Adelaide Grove left with no chance, and that might be the goal of the season right there.
Holy
what a hit from
smokes.
way out, top corner. Wow, that's an incredible
Talk
goal.
about getting the bugbear off your back. She had to do it.
What a hit, honestly. That is a fantastic strike. And if you're worried about running offside, like you just said, Teo, just do it from, outside the box, just so you don't have to have that issue anymore.
Yeah, just make sure you've got 3 defenders in front of you. You're sweet.
It's amazing to see Zimmerman back on the score sheet and, after that horrific injury.
Victory are flowing forward here. They're trying to make it 3-2. They've sprung to life. But let's bring back Mark Torcasco because it's offside again. So 2-2. We're heading for a big finish there. But Mark, I wanted to slightly touch on a more serious topic because you did lose a player, Amy Medwin, to an ACL injury this week. It means she's out for the season. It means she's out long term. From a club point of view, you're a startup club. You are totally new, but you're no stranger to this situation and dealing with a player who's going through that at the moment. What has Western United done to support the player, and how important is it when you're setting the tone of your organisation to know that when a player goes down with injury that they're not lost and forgotten just because they're not going to be part of your charge towards the final series?
Yeah, I definitely. I mean, in any environment that I've been in, it's always been my priority if any players sort of go down with any long-term injuries or injuries that are going to keep them out, that you look after them, you still engage with them and keep them involved in the group. And so far, Western has literally opened their arms to Amy and I think getting her into surgery ASAP. So we'll be supporting her all the way. She's been fantastic for us, and she was one of the first targets that I wanted to bring out here. All 6 to 8 months ago. So it's unfortunate for Amy, and I truly believe she'll come back extremely strong. And we as a club will 100% support her on that. And make sure she gives herself every chance to be right for next season.
Mark, what is the situation in your camp at the moment? You've got one hand on the premiership. Are you taking it game by game? Do you speak about it, or have you sort of put it on the back burner and sort of just, taking it game by game and not sort of thinking about it? Because Sydney FC are creeping up on you guys.
Yeah, I think we've sort of approached it that we take each game as it is. We don't sort of focus on the second or third game after each week. We just focus each game, each week, each training. Obviously, as it creeps close to the end of the year, then there's going to be a bit of media and a bit of attention around who's going to win the Premier's Plate. But for us, it's just literally focusing on each game and each week. And we've got to focus on Sydney this week now on another away trip. That's going to be a great game. So it's just literally each game, each week for us, Canals. And, so far the club and the players have exceeded all my expectations as a coach. And we're just enjoying this journey, and we just want to keep going along with it.
We've sat here on this couch. A lot of, the football media that discusses the A-League Women's has pontificated about what the reason Western United has had for why they've come in and why they've been good straight away. Without preempting your answer, what do you believe the reason has been that Western United have come in as a have and as a top team, rather than, say, like Wellington last year, who came in and won the wooden spoon?
I think definitely the recruiting is very important. Having the right people work with you in regards to recruiting players, Teo, as you'd be aware. It's very, very important to get your playing group right. Searching the nation, searching, I guess, internationally for the right people that fit. That's always been my sort of view on putting together a side, is just getting the balance right and getting the, I guess, the culture right. I know that's a term that's always used, but getting the culture right, getting your change room right, all those types of things. So it was literally putting all those things together and then just making sure, you back yourself. And I think, as Helen said in her Dub Zone interview with you guys, was that, as long as you back yourself and you give yourself a chance, then you're half a chance. And once you get your playing group right, there's the rest of it. So fantastic. It's fantastic to have great support with people like Helen and George and Sean and all these people that work with us. And the club are just fantastic. So from that perspective, it's not just a me thing or one recruiter thing. It's an everyone.
And it wouldn't be Dub Zone if I didn't have a really tough question for you. A lot of people judge Western United through the prism of the men's team not building the stadium. But as far as the training facility, which is currently being built, the infrastructure in Victoria, what impact is that going to have once that facility is built, once you've got a new home ground to play out of? But also, what's it going to do to the Victorian landscape to have a facility like that in the western suburbs?
Yeah, it's going to be huge. I know that the club puts a big emphasis on our training facilities that are coming up, and I know that our players are well aware of what we're going to be moving into, hopefully in the next 3 to 6 months. So from that perspective, it's definitely going to create a buzz in the West for everyone, not just for female football, but for every aspect of football. So having a fantastic regional training facility is going to be important for us and a real home base. I guess something that we can really call home. So we're looking forward to it, and hopefully it changes the dial for not just for us, but for every A-League club in the state and in the nation.
Mark, we were lucky to talk to J-Mac a couple of times while she was with you guys, and you spoke to the importance of choosing that squad and finding players from around the world who suit your dynamic. Is there anything that J-Mac left behind in that squad? Because we found that even when she left, that momentum didn't change within the squad, and her leadership clearly stayed within the team and whatever impact she had. Do you feel that she really left something behind with those girls?
I definitely know she hasn't left anything behind, because she's still involved in conversations with players, and they've got their own team chats and group chats that I know that she's obviously stays in touch. She reached out to me the other day when she heard that I was injured, so she definitely stays in touch with our club and our players. So it wasn't a goodbye for us. It was just the start of something, and Jess definitely left something pretty special, but she hasn't left it completely, because she still has an involvement and she still talks to people, which is fantastic for us. It's great for her as well. So yeah, no, definitely not forgotten, and will always be remembered.
Love that. We're big fans of her over here. And last question, because we are a bit curious. How did you hurt yourself, Mark?
Wow. Just training mishap. Let's just call it that. Training mishap.
Well, Mark, thank you so much for joining us on Dub Zone, and good luck for the remainder of the season. We can't wait to see what's in store for that final series.
Thanks, guys. Thanks a lot. Good job.
Thank you. All right, well, let's get back to this Pride Cup where it is equalised once again, anyone's game.
Yeah, and Adelaide have certainly rallied since conceding the equaliser to that player right there, Catherine Zimmerman, who found the back of the net. Her first goal of the season too, it must be said, having broken her leg in round 2 of the campaign. But she's now come back, she's had assists, she's been important, and now she is on the score sheet as well. Adelaide, you would have seen there during the chat with Mark Torcasco, made a double substitution. They took off Isabel Hodgson and Mindy Barbieri for Amelia Murray and Fiona Wirtz. And Catherine, in substitution terms, that is throwing the kitchen sink at this one, because they've taken off a defender and a midfielder for 2 forwards.
I think Adrian Center knows that he needs to get 3 points out of this game, for the girls, for their confidence within themselves. If they want to get anything out of their season, they know that it's a must-win game for them today. And it's been unfortunate because the last 15 minutes, really, they've lost the momentum, and it's gone back to some old ways and some previous games as well. We've seen the exact same mentality where they lose that momentum, they don't know how to manage the game, and mentally they feel like they're really getting peppered, and they haven't been able to hold on to their lead here.
So we'll have this corner come up here, and then we'll take another look at that Catherine Zimmerman goal. But we need to watch this corner right here. 10 minutes of regulation to go. And so the heat is really on Melbourne Victory's defence here with this Sasaki corner. It's floating high over the head of McCormick. The header's there. It's batted away by Casey Dumont. And Marushka Waldes forcing a save from Dumont. to clear it away. And Adelaide United, I said they were rallying since the equaliser. Well, that's as close as they've come to scoring the go-ahead goal for 3-2.
They're definitely not going to take their foot off the pedal here. They know what this game means, and they know how hard they need to try to get these 3 points. And you can see from a few of those players on the pitch that they're absolutely giving it their all. And I know in terms of their set pieces, they work really hard on them on the training field as well. And it's something that they have been quite good at in previous seasons, and something that hopefully we might see a goal from this set piece here now.
So we'll stay with this free kick too, because the tables have turned. Adelaide now have the ball down at their attacking end, and they are building sustained pressure. And Nanako Sasaki, we know that the free kick she scored in the semi-final last year against Melbourne Victory was pretty spectacular. I wouldn't think a direct shot is on here, though. There's a big pack of players waiting to charge in and attack this ball. It's hit high, and it's going to fall to McCormick.
Oh.
And Casey Dumont is able to jump on it and diffuse the danger.
This tweet about Catherine Zimmerman's long-range effort was such a bomb. The US Air Force is currently trying to figure out how to attach it to their airplanes.
That is
Joey
some
Lynch
class tweeting. Don't forget, #DubZone. Join the chat. If you've got crackers like that, we want to hear them.
Leah Privatelli all knocked over here by Sasaki, who got back to defend. This is going to be a real end-to-end game, because Victory know the value of winning here as well. If they win, it keeps their nose out in front of Perth, of Canberra, and it pretty much puts paid to Adelaide. Of course, if Adelaide win, they can still believe that a top 4 run might be possible, because if they were to win, it would kickstart their season here. So we see a long shot that is going to bend into the gloves of Annalie Grove. So this might be the best 10 minutes of the home and away season to date coming up right here, because the stage has been set, the quality of goals with the ebb and flow of the scoring in the game. Victory led. Adelaide turned it around to lead 2-1. Now it's Victory who have come back to make it 2-2. You see Adelaide looking to build down the right side. Amy Jackson is the obstacle they can't get past at the moment. Here is Amelia Murray, one of the subs that's come off the bench. Playing it central. Westland keeps it moving. And it just runs beyond the touch of Chelsea Dorber, who has to go and retrieve the ball. Who's on in the penalty area? No one at the moment. Westland at the edge of the box and not able to find a teammate with that pass. And so Melbourne Victory come away once again. And look at the space that at least Kellon Knight has got to try to break into here, but not able to make the most of it. Subs coming up. And it's going to be Tiff Eliadis coming on here for Melbourne Victory. And perhaps they're going to look to calm things down. Amy Jackson will be coming off. Here's another look, Catherine, at the 2 goals where Catherine Zimmerman was offside, and then the strike which made it a moot point.
Yeah, you could see there that Zimmerman is in a position where she's wanting to get on the ball. She wanted to get the ball in the back of the net, and she did in beautiful fashion. What a strike it was when she finally hit the back of the net with that absolute cracker strike. And again, it's great to see her get her first goal of the season, especially after sustaining that horrific injury. And wow, what a strike. If you talk about clear
Is that goal
cut,
of the season so far?
I'd have to say it would be.
So.
It's just
It's just from
that's picking
downtown.
the pigeons out of that corner of the net. And yeah, what a strike.
That's
Unbelievable.
a world-class strike.
World
You'd
class.
see that in any league around the world and
World
think that was
class.
an amazing goal.
And to be able to hit it from that far out with that technique, let me tell you, it is not easy to do.
Do you know
That's
what?
the hunger, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like she wanted that goal so bad. She was offside twice. She had to finish, and she just did it from way back when.
To think that she broke her leg and scored that goal in the same season, for me, is I can't fathom. Mind blowing.
Mind blowing.
It's a credit to how she's handled her rehab, but also the surgeon that did the surgery, to be honest.
Goodness.
Like Melbourne Victory, they've had players who've, look at Melina Reyes, has been persistently injured and hasn't been able to manage a hamstring over the last 2 seasons to get on the field. And when she has been on the field, she's been a really effective player. So Victory must feel as though the tide is turning in a bit of their luck as far as injury management as well, to have a player break their leg and come back within the same season. You see there 26 total shots in the game, and who is going to be next to score? Might be a case of next goal wins, to be honest, as this pass from Jessica Nash is going to be run onto by Tiff Eliadis. And so Victory stay on the attack, ball into the middle, and Ayres is always dangerous in this situation. Eliadis, what a good save! And the follow-up is blocked away out for a corner. And that's Annalie Grove making a vital save, a potential season saver for Adelaide there.
Yeah, what a fantastic save there. It's a credit to Grove. She's, have to be called on there, and it's not easy to block a shot from that close range. And it's going to be tough here for Adelaide because they're going to really throw everything at it, and it's going to start to open up the game and give Melbourne Victory more opportunities to have more shots on target.
Oh, Claudia Bunge was getting in there, taking the header on goal, which has been held onto by Annalie Grove. It's probably worth mentioning that Adelaide did say goodbye to Zhao Yuyi, their Chinese import, during the international break. Went back to play with the Chinese national team, but then signed for a club in China. So, bit of a misfire. Didn't score a goal while she was here. Certainly gave us little glimpses of her quality, but I mean, you talk about the depth of their team. They started Murray and Wirtz on the bench today. I guess they would have been frustrated that Zhao Yuyi didn't work out, but they wouldn't have been heartbroken that she had to go.
Look, I think it's really important when you're doing your recruiting, and you got to make sure that players are going to fit into our league. And unfortunately for Zhao, she just really didn't suit that style of play that Adelaide were putting on, and I think it was a bit of an unfortunate piece of recruiting for Adelaide.
I think the language barrier is probably... I mean, we've seen Melbourne Victory, we think of Jun Gaiyul when she was out here, the South Korean player. If you're from a country where there's just no English whatsoever, and you're coming into an environment where obviously none of the players are going to speak, Mandarin or Korean, you're really taking the trust of we all speak football to an extra level, aren't you?
It's very difficult, and it'll be really hard not only for her coming to Australia and being in a different environment, and to be able to get the best out of footballers or any athlete. They need to be in an environment where they're comfortable, and it would have been, very difficult for her to come to Australia, and also very difficult for Adrian Stenter to be able to put that time and effort. And again, we're talking about, Adrian Stenter that also has another full-time job as a coach. So how much time will they be able to spend with her, off the pitch and not in training time, to be able to explain their philosophy and their style of play, because football can only do a certain amount of talking.
And there's plenty of players that do speak your language and don't follow your instructions as a coach, so it makes it that much harder when you've got someone that doesn't.
Yes, look, I've been in that situation as an assistant coach. We had Elizabeth Addo, who plays for the Ghana national team, and she came out, and also we had the difficult situation of the language barrier, and we couldn't, get our instructions across to her. And me and Dan Barrett would be on the sideline at the time. We're like, what is she doing? Where is she going? She was in the back line at some points. She would just go wherever she wanted to go and pick up the ball, and then she'd go and dribble like 8 players and then get to the top. And in the end, we'll just used to throw our hands up and go, we can't even, make her understand where we're at. And in the end, it's got very, very difficult. She's a fantastic talent, but it was a challenge to be able to deal with a player like that as well.
We are down to the last 2 minutes of regulation here. Elise Kellon-Knight dropping this free kick in. Grove is up, doesn't take clean possession, so it's still there, and the referee's going to blow the whistle and say it's a foul. Tiff Eliadis has a great leap on her and often scores headed goals at NPL level, and you think of last season, she popped up with a vital goal for victory against Canberra, which was a header. And you wouldn't be surprised if set pieces are an avenue that Victory try to exploit. There's the jump from Eliadis. Maybe just the arm raised across the keeper. You got to be a bit eagle-eyed as a referee to see those.
Yeah, it's a difficult one to be able to see, obviously, when there's players
she's definitely thrown her arm
coming out from everywhere. But, she's such a tough footballer, Tiff Eliadis. She's an absolute warrior on the pitch, and we've seen her across many seasons at the Victory play many different roles for this team and for Jeff Hopkins.
So ball currently at the feet of Jess Nash, doesn't want to go for the back pass and spins away instead. Melbourne Victory very much still going for this. They know that as much as a draw hurts Adelaide, the likes of Perth, the likes of Canberra, they're making their move. It's getting closer and closer in the top 4 race, and a lot of people are already starting to mark their calendars for Victory's trip to Canberra game after next. They've still got the Melbourne Derby to worry about after today's game against Adelaide, so they're on a really tough run of fixtures at the moment. Canberra actually play Adelaide next week, so that could be season shaping for both of them. Perth are at home against Western Sydney Wanderers, so Perth have got a vital game coming up too. Here's McCormick now for Adelaide. We're going to tick into stoppage time. How many minutes will there be to try and grab a winner? They've got 4 extra minutes here, and it's going to be a really tense finish to Dub Zone this one. as the ball is dinked into the area just over the head of McCormick, who might have been thrown forward here. We already mentioned they've subbed on Wirtz and Amelia Murray. Are they playing two at the back, Adelaide? This is really high risk, high tightrope sort of stuff. And the ball goes out for an Adelaide throw. Oh, they're not leaving anything to chance here.
They are definitely going for it. You know, they're pushing everyone up. They know what this game means. It's do or die for their season. And, you know, again, it changes the game now and it starts to open things up. But, you know, Melbourne Victory got to be really careful in these dying moments just before, you know, not recognising that they had an extra player up front and they were actually overloaded in that front third, which was quite dangerous. And they don't want to be losing any points today.
So McCormick has returned to the back line, but can't impact the play here. Balls to Dylan Holmes in a bit of space. Oh, not the greatest touch, though. Showed the ball to Melbourne Victory, and they take it away. And now can they counter? The players have the juice left in their legs to go running. This is Kayla Morrison getting forward, but now she's caught in possession. And Paige Hayward with Morrison scrambling back, the centre-back out of position. Can Adelaide capitalise? Dorber's waiting in the middle. Amelia Murray drives it low. And it's cleared away by Claudia Bunge out for a corner. And this is where Marushka Waldus will be the number one target.
Everybody's going to be pushing up for this corner. It's do or die now. And we know that they've got a lot of strength in the air. They've got Waldus and they've got a lot of players that are looking for those set pieces. So I'm sure everybody's going to be being pushed up for this moment here and this corner kick.
We know that Jenna McCormick, it can be a good leap in the air for her height as well and has a history of headed goals. So Sasaki's got a couple of targets to aim for. Here comes the corner kick right into the pack of players and the header is up. But Waldus can't keep it down, and half of stoppage time has expired. So can either team create one last chance in these last 2 minutes in order to grab a winner in this game?
Come on. I want a winner.
You can see here Sasaki with her corners today. She's actually, they're outswingers, right? And they're looking for those players to come up and to be able to get a head on it, whether it's Marushka Waters or Jenna McCormack. They're actually, you know, looking for that to be able to get that height advantage. And, you know, here they just got to give it everything because it's unfortunate, though. It's really hard when you've got nothing to play for to get through these last 3 or 4 rounds of the competition. So they really know it's do or die for them today.
So another free kick for Sasaki. Waldus, McCormick, they are both forward. Wirtz and Murray lurking. Again, all about the delivery here. Sasaki driving it, and it's headed away from the edge of the box. Touchdown for Hayward, and the bending strike is high and over. So we're down to the last minute. It's all Adelaide at the moment. We know that Victory can go end to end. They have looked dangerous pretty much all of this second half. Adelaide are trying to finish with a bang here. Gee, Kayla Morrison had to be composed under pressure there from players advancing. And now Eliadis touches it out to the left. 1 minute that could define the season here. Let's see if we get a goal. Now breaking down the left-hand side. Victory, they're in behind. All about the delivery for Nat Tatham, and it's out for a corner at the other end. And so now this is Victory's chance to win it, and I can tell you in Perth, in Canberra, they are all shouting at their TVs for Adelaide to hold on.
Well, you can see there by Casey Dumont's actions that they are not happy with the point. They want to get the 3 points today. You can see she's putting it down. She's playing it quick. If they were happy with the point, she would have been slowing things down. And, you know, they really want to be able to get these 3 points on the board because they want to be able to have a little bit more of a buffer in that top 4 finish.
Well, this is a surprise because Eliadis is a great player in the air, but she's going to take the corner instead. Who does she aim for? Kayla Morrison's there. Claudia Bunge as well. Up goes the corner. Bunge got the header, and the shot is just wide. Morrison came in at close range, but couldn't twist it back towards goal. And with stoppage time expiring, these two teams might have to settle for a draw.
I think it's a fair result, a draw today. You know, both teams have had their chances and, you know, they come out firing in the first half especially, and you could see the energy from both teams, and it's just fantastic to see what a great game of football we've had today and the excitement behind it as well.
Full-time whistle's gone, and so Adelaide United, they can now only get to 29 points this season. It puts Brisbane Roar back ahead of them in terms of the maximum number of points they can get. Melbourne Victory, handshakes at full-time. They can only get to 35 now themselves. Canberra, if they were to win all their remaining games, can get to 35. Perth, if they were to win all their remaining games, can get to 36. Ooh. And so that means that the odds have now swung against Melbourne Victory in the top 4 race. Perth are now in the box seat. Canberra are neck and neck with Victory. Brisbane and Adelaide they are now needing results pretty much, not just in their own games, but every time each of these teams in this cluster goes out and kicks off.
What an exciting finish to the season, for us to be able to have this and to be able to sit here not knowing who's going to, be in that top four at the end of the season, I think is a real testament to the league and how exciting it's been and how, teams that did have also a slower start at the beginning that can really get to the back end now and still be able to and make that top four position, which is fantastic. It's really great to see teams like Perth and Canberra also have the opportunity to really push on and get something out of this season as well.
Victory showed real character today to fight back because Adelaide had turned around the deficit within the first half. Victory, they overcame the frustration of the offsides. They got the equaliser. They had their chances to win it. As of today, Catherine, one, are we saying that Melbourne City are definitely sure things in the top four? I mean, we're both saying that Western and Sydney will make it, but are we saying Melbourne City's there for sure? And then if you had to pick one of Victory, Canberra, Perth, Brisbane, Adelaide, who've you got?
Wow. Put her on the spot, Teo. It's what Teo does
But
best.
we'll start with the Melbourne City question. Are we certain that Melbourne City will take care of business? They've got a little bit of a buffer at the moment. They're on 25 points. They can get to a maximum of 40. Are we taking it as read that City will finish the season strong, or do you think they can be dragged back into the mix as well?
I think Melbourne City's got enough quality to finish the season strong and to be there, come the end of the season. I think Sydney FC and obviously Western are there in that mix as well. It's now, I think it's the fourth spot is where it's getting really shaky. And my heart says Victory. I really want them to hold on to that fourth spot. But in saying that, those other teams can really make a run for it. And I think it's super exciting to see where we're at in this competition.
I'll let you off the hook not giving me a straight answer because we've got a guest coming up, Brianna.
That's right, we certainly do. And she was someone who scored what we're calling the goal of the season. Catherine Zimmerman joins us now. Catherine, there was 2 offsides, but you did it, and you did it from range. How does it feel to get that goal today?
Yeah, I mean, it's good to get that kind of goal. But yeah, just the result kind of overshadows that. We really wanted to win today, so yeah, it's just a bummer to share the points. But
Catherine, what a strike. Unbelievable. It's one of the best goals that I've seen in the competition to date. In saying that, I always say to the strikers, your best goals that you've ever scored, you never actually see them go in the back of the net. I want to know, was your head over the ball when you hit that ball so sweetly?
Yeah, I think I saw it. For a second, I thought it might go over, but it kind of dipped a little bit down. So, yeah, I think I saw it. Might have started celebrating before it hit the net, but yeah, I appreciate your kind words. Thanks.
Catherine, we're all fascinated to know your rehab and how you've come back from your leg injury suffered in round 2. Tell us about the progression and how it's gone, that you've come back and played such incredible football, seemingly like you hadn't missed a beat. I'm guessing it has not been as easy as you've made it look.
Well, yeah, I guess going into it, I just always had the mindset that it could be worse. And like the whole time, I'll just never forget how much my teammates in the club supported me and were there for me every step of the way. Even coming to the practice match, my first game back, a bunch of them came out, and so I think just credit to them having their moral support around me. Just really helped me, and they did the work for the I don't know 8 to 10 games I was out, and they've kept us in it, and then yeah, hopefully the next few games we can, like you said, keep that 4th spot.
Catherine scored an absolute banger. I'm never going to forget that goal. I'm so glad that we got to experience it in live time here all together. But obviously the top 4, it's contentious. It's an extremely competitive season. What's the mentality of the team heading into the remaining games this season?
Yeah, it's definitely tight. We went into this thinking it was really a must-win to just separate ourselves from the teams that were behind us. So yeah, I don't know, typical fashion, we try to always make it difficult for ourselves sometimes. So hopefully, yeah, we just keep working, keep sticking to the process, and hopefully we can just extend and keep our 4th spot in the next few games. Yeah, we got work to do, but I think
Catherine, it's really easy for us in the media to look at Victory through the lens of Alex Chidiac is no longer there. Is that a name that has even been said in the club since she's left? Do players look at themselves as stepping into the void left by Alex Chidiac? Or is it really a situation where Jeff has said, all right, we know who's here, we know who's not, we're going to talk about what we've got, rather than the fact that Alex is no longer there?
Yeah, I think a bit of both. Obviously, like, Shids is huge shoes to fill, but we have like truly capable players to, step up and take that spot. So, yeah, it's been a bit of both. We miss her, but I think we have the skill and the personalities to still get the wins. Not today, but.
Catherine, I know Jeff can be quite a stress head on the sideline, and you see him jumping up and down and throwing his arms around. What's been his approach to the team over the past few weeks in terms of, these next 5 weeks of the competition and what the plan is for the team and where you want to go moving forward?
Yeah, his message the past few weeks is just to, separate ourselves from like the lower half of the pack. So yeah, nothing's really truly changed in his coaching mentality and his tactics and his like personality. I think we want to stay consistent, and I think he is, and I think that's what makes him a great coach. Is like win, lose or draw, like we're still sticking to the same process. Like surely like lights a fire under our butts sometimes, but I think that's normal.
Catherine, thank you so much for joining us. Once again, congratulations on that mammoth goal. Unlucky it's a draw, but we hope to see more wins and Melbourne Victory do well moving forward in the season. Thank you.
Appreciate your time, guys. Thank you.
Wow. Well, shall we recap some of the highlights of that mammoth game?
Yes, let's, because there were some pretty special highlights in this match, and really the two games for Dubzone, for very different score lines and scoring patterns, delivered us no shortage of talking points throughout the course of our bumper Sunday show. So the final score, 2-2 between Melbourne Victory and Adelaide United. It all got started with what has been credited as Melina Ayres' goal for 1-0. So she's up to 6 for the season now. Annalie Grove got a touch on it, but it was not an own goal, definitely Melina's. A first ever A-League women's goal for Misha Westland. Great moment for her as she knocked in this cross from former Victory player Mindy Barbieri, and then Chelsea Dorber bundled in her fourth goal of the season. And at that time, Adelaide United had turned around the deficit to lead 2-1. But in the second half, Melbourne Victory certainly created a lot. 14 shots, 5 on target, and Adelaide 7 shots, 4 on target. That's just the second half alone. Victory had 23 shots for the game, but an XG of only 1.52. Adelaide 12 shots, 7 on target, 1.56. That was the other goal, which was disallowed. And then Catherine Cannulli, what we're saying is the goal of the season so far, meant that both teams left with a share of the points.
I think the result today was fair in, both teams taking home 1 point. I think it was an exciting game that towards the end there that they both were still pushing to want to get those 3 points. You could see the disappointment in Catherine Zimmerman's face when, she was so disappointed that they didn't get that win because they really wanted to use this game to be able to separate themselves from the rest of the pack and be able to have that little bit of a buffer going into the last few rounds of the season.
Speaking about getting a bit of a buffer going, we did have the earlier game in Newey. Teo, can we run through those highlights?
We certainly can because, it was pretty lopsided, this one. 1-0 before the red card. So Carly Johnson scoring her first A-League women's goal here. And not the greatest moment for Georgie Worth, the goalkeeper. Then we had the red card for Emily Garnier. Unfortunately for her, down to 10 men here. Carly Johnson skins Cass Davis with a really nice little shimmy and scores on the tight angle. That was one of the nicer goals of the day. It was 3-0, and again, a tough situation. Mel Taranto just being a nuisance on the goal line, and it was credited as an own goal for Georgie Worth. TJ Blanich, who took that corner, said, "I'm not leaving without a goal," and went and banged that one in. Hannah Keane, kapow at the other end, and that's 11 for the season for the Golden Boot leader. 6-0, the full-time score, the second worst defeat equal that the Newcastle Jets have ever suffered.
Wow. It was a kapow for me. That got me. I love it, the way you said that. Now, look, if you love goals, this has been the show for you today. We had 10 with just 2 games. It's been fabulous. And look, next week we will be back to our regular time. That's right, it'll be Saturday at 3 p.m. So make sure you tune in to Dubzone then. But for now, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for joining us today. And we're going to send you off to enjoy the rest of your Sunday evening and get into a good week. We'll see you next time.